All right, y'all. I am Marwan Cameron. This is The Conduit. It's Monday morning. You know how I feel about Mondays. Mondays are my favorite day. Why? Why could Monday be my favorite day? Well, that is the day that everything gets going. So we're going to get right into it. It is 62 degrees in Kitsap County today. And, let me just start off by saying, as folks come in, they're not going to want to miss this, as you see by the title. I'm going to try to make it rain for you today, right? Let's make it rain. So I want to make sure that everyone gets rained on, because this is, like I said, super important here. I do want to make sure that everyone gets in, and then we'll get ourselves going on. All right. People reaching out to me, letting me know they coming on in. Hey there, Rev. Hey there, Sabrina. Good to see both of you today. Hope that you are both blessed and highly favored, as I myself am. And like I said, we're going to get into the money. Give me a shout out if you're present and accounted for. As let a few more people come on in. The summer food program, 12:30 to 3:30, free food for your kiddos from at two places at KCR, 1201 Park Avenue and 4040 Wheaton Way, New Horizon Ministries. If you know where KFC is on Wheaton Way, then you know where they are. Just turn into that parking lot, go straight to the back, go on upstairs, and they're right there for you, But again, I encourage you all to subscribe, like, and share. Many people have been saying, hey, you're going live, and I didn't know that you had a show. And it's like, yeah, no, I was live, So hit that bell. Sometimes you might want to maybe unsubscribe and resubscribe. So you've got it. There's our website there. But I'm going to be going over how to get money. Okay? The deadline is fast approaching, and so there is not a lot of time, but I do want to share this information out with you. Again, to give you a little history, as we're doing this, you can type your questions into the chat. I do cover now the Wednesday City Council meetings and now the Thursday REACT meetings. And in the Wednesday City Council meeting, Tracy Flood, Judge Flood, shout out to the judge. She was presenting and advocating for money so that she can do programming. And if you haven't seen the programming that she's doing up at the courthouse, you're missing out on a treat. Really fantastic opportunity for kids to see how the court works. They get to do mock trials, and really fun. And then after that, Dr. Lillian Robinson came on. And she was requesting money for their STEM program that's going to be starting here in a week. I'll try to get that information and put that out. So if you are looking for a great opportunity for your kids, I would encourage you to get into that program. The Dojo program is a highly regarded program for coding. So you definitely want to check that out. But anyway, she was also requesting funds for that program, right? And so they were talking about two pots of money here. That one pot I have heard of, but another pot I never heard of. ARPA. Like, what is ARPA? What are these ARPA funds, right? And so it appears like there was like $460,000 of these ARPA funds. And it's like, I need to know what ARPA funds are, right? So I sent an email out to the city council to try to inquire about what that was. And I got a response. And the job here of the conduit is to elevate, to educate, to inform, right? So I'm not going to have some kind of an opportunity and then try to keep it to myself. I'm going to share it out with the masses so that other folks can potentially take advantage of that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the opportunities, and then we're going to go over those opportunities together so that you have an understanding. As I said, the deadline is fast approaching, and so it could be that you're not in position for this year, but CDBG funds, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, are every year, right? So maybe you've been working on a program, you might need to tighten it up a little bit, and then you can go and seek these funds for next year. Or you've been wanting to get into some programming and you want to put together a program. Hey there, Christina. Elevate, educate, and inform. Yes, I'm going to go over all of that. That deadline, I believe, is here at the end of the month. So let me go ahead and pull this up. So I'm going to show you my correspondence with the city. So you have that. And again, we have a lot of sayings, right? Closed mouth doesn't get fed. You can only get no if you don't ask. That, or the answer is always going to be a no if you don't ask, right? So we got to ask these questions. And so Akuye we found out. So let me back up and tell you the story, right? I covered the Wednesday city council meeting. Then I called Akuye and I said, hey, Akuye, there's this money out here. Did you know about it? She said, no, I didn't know about this money. You know how Akuye talks. No, child, I didn't know about that money. What money? Tell me about this money, Mom. So I told her about the money. So she's like, I'm going down to the city on Friday. So she called. Well, the city's only open 9 to 12 on Fridays, right? So she called. There's no response. So she had to drive all the way from Bainbridge Island down to Bremerton. So she gets down to Bremerton and she goes upstairs, right? And she goes to the front desk and she inquires about these funds, right? Well, the folks said, well, we don't really have, the information now, but send me an email and I will get the information and, you know what it needs to be. So she said, okay. So then she came to my house and we sent the email from here. Okay. Now this is the email. Hi, my name is Marwan Cameron, and I'm the executive director of Gather Together, Grow Together and the Conduit Podcast Network. Another leader, Akuye Karen Vargas from Living Life Leadership, spoke to you at 12 p.m. about ARPA funds. You instructed her to email you so that you can gather information and application if applicable. My organization is also interested, and thank you in advance for the information. During the city council meeting, a deadline is fast approaching, so we need as much information as possible to request money. Warm regards. Marwan Cameron, Executive Director, Gather Together, Grow Together, the Conduit Podcast. Power is taken, it is not given. My favorite quote. So here is the response. I saw Mayor Wheeler's email. So we also sent an email to Mayor Wheeler. Thank you for your email. I hope you are having a nice Monday morning. And so this was this morning, right? So I'm going live. Let me see, when was this email? I got this email at basically 9 a.m. and it's 11:30 and I'm sharing this information with you. Thank you for your email. I hope you are having a nice Monday morning. Of course I am. It's my favorite day. I saw Mayor Wheeler's email, and I am glad he was able to provide some more information about the ARPA funding process. I wanted to make sure I also make myself available for any questions you may have about CDBG funds. Please click on the link below for our federal grant website, which has links to our application. So I'm going to go ahead. That is in the description in YouTube and Facebook, so it is there. I'll also put it here in the chat here for you. I also have a link here to our 2023 policy plan, which has more information about the types of projects that qualify, specifically pages 33 through 39. Applications for 2023 program year are open until July 28th. So the answer to that question, Christina, is July 28th. So we're talking about, not long. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Again, thank you, Sarah. Okay. And so we're doing this show right now. Okay. All right. So if you do have questions, one, I'm going to put her information here, right? So let me get her email, put that in there if you want to reach out to her directly, because I am clearly not the expert on this, right? I am providing you the information. But we're going to go over this now, and I hope as you make your informed decision, you will, let me go ahead and just put all that in the chat there. You will have some questions based on this podcast that will help you to formulate what you want to ask Sarah, right? That will be most helpful to you, okay? So this is her name. This is her phone number. This is where they're at, downtown in the Norm Dix building. And her email was the one above, okay? So that is there for you in the chat. So let's go ahead and get into this, right? All right, so we're going to open up this link here. And I'm going to zoom in. And so this is the very first link that she shared with us. This is the Federal Grants Community Development Block Grant. And I'm going to read, okay? The City of Bremerton has created the 2023 Cdbg Home Policy Plan detailing the policies behind the use of Community Development Block Grant funds. Okay, so that is what Cdbg stands for, Community Development Block Grant. Okay, and Home Investment Partnership Funds for the 2023 program year. The plan contains details on how eligible applicants, eligible activities, federal requirements for use of funds, the allocation process, and other detailed information relevant to those who would be interested in applying for those funds. That's us, y'all, right? A 15-day public comment period was held from June 2nd to June 17th. Okay, so unfortunately, I did not start covering City Council until July. So I missed this, right? And I would assume that many of us missed this. And this is one of the reasons why I believe a platform like this is so important, right? Because we don't know about these opportunities. And so we're often told lots of things like, well, you know, if you just asked, well, you don't know who to ask or what to ask, right? Well, everybody else knew about it. Well, I'm not everybody. Clearly, I didn't. And a lot of people in my extended circle have never even heard about these grants or how to apply and access these grants, right? So sometimes you don't know what to ask for if you just don't know what to ask. But again, we're also very busy. So it's like, well, you know, the city council meetings they're open. And if you can't attend, you can always watch the archives, right? So they've made it available, but this is what barriers look like, right? So those that are in the know, that have an understanding of these resources are, how to access information for these resources, who to ask, right? Have relationships with people who are just going to tell them, hey, Marwan, hey, Mr. Cameron, did you know that there's this money over here and the stuff that you're doing, you know, you definitely qualify. You got like 3 or 4 programs that will qualify for this. You know, matter of fact, folks will come and put their arm around you and say, hey, you know what, we're going to help you get some money for your program, right? That happens, right? So you're not in the know. You don't know what you don't know. And so again, the conduit is gonna aim to change that. All right, so back to where I was. A public hearing was scheduled for July 6, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. to review the 2023 policy plan and where public comments will be heard. So this would be the place where we can have our voices heard, right? The 2023 City of Bremerton policy plan is here. So we'll click on that in a second, but I just want to keep reading this down. This city is beginning its competitive funding process for 2023 Cdbg funds. Please see the notice of funding available, okay? This document will provide important information to begin your application for Cdbg funds. Additionally, please see the request for proposals, they call those RFPs, for home investment partnership funds. The online application will open on June 30th. Here is the coordinated grant application site. For public facilities and infrastructure projects, select City of Bremerton 2023 Cdbg Capital. For job training programs in the City of Bremerton, select the City of Bremerton 2023 Job Training. You know, for the last 3 years, up until this year, we have been taking folks to do just that, right? We're paying for their food handlers permit, their alcohol permit, we're buying their clothes, we're transporting them to the University of Washington, to CenturyLink, to the Tacoma Dome, and building those soft skills and those hard skills. Didn't know about this, right? For economic development, micro enterprise program serving the city of Bremerton residents, select the City of Bremerton 2023 micro enterprises. So I think for a lot of us, that's what we'll be taking a look at. Okay, so maybe 2 and 3, right? Not to say that you can't be looking at capital funds. This is, typically for building, right? Infrastructure, things like that. Important in red, always read the red stuff. To name the project application, you must enter your agency name or acronym first and then the project name, then click on the Get Started button. Instructions are available here. So again, for number 1, the capital projects, you would click that one. For job training, you click this one. And for City of Bremerton micro enterprises, you would check this one. So now I will probably look at all 3 because we do have a construction company, right? So I'd be interested to see what's in here. But we do have a job training program and a job readiness program. And we also are a micro enterprise, right? And then please reach out to any Cdbg administrator, Sarah Lyman, for any questions. Now, I will tell you that some of the bigger organizations have extended their hand and they're willing to help. So agencies like the United Way, Kitsap Strong, there are a lot of good agencies that may be able to help and assist you in getting those things going. KCR now with Tony Ives at the helm as the new executive director, another good one. Okay, so shout out to all of them. The City of Bremerton Community Development Block Grant and Home Program. Let me stop here really quick. I want to make sure I'm not going too fast for folks. Again, this is probably your first time in seeing, information like this. So I want to make sure that I'm not just glossing over this. And while I take a sip of my water, one of the reasons why I want to do this or why we do this in this format is this is archived. So you can go back and watch it as many times as you need to. You can skip through and fast forward. You can put it on slow so that you have the information that you need. You may not be ready to start working on this until you meet with your board and discuss how you're going to go about it. And then 2 months later, you need to come back and take a look at this, right? And then you have it all here. So I really want to be as helpful as a resource as possible. Thank you. All right, so you got to thank the water. All right, so let's go back up here. And here is the notice. So let's take a look at the notice. And what I'm going to do, I think the best way to do this is, again, we can get lost in the sauce pretty quickly. Look at this big old page. There's a ton of links on here, right? Alerts, news, projects, online payments, employment, online services. I don't think we need any of this, okay? There's a guidebook here that we can access. I might put that in favorites if I needed it. Sign up to receive the news flash updates. First off, everyone should be doing this, okay? Notify me. Hey. That way we don't miss out, okay? Oh, I do like my text messages. I'm just saying, texting me is the way to go. I still might not respond really quick, but hey, All right, Stephanie is not going to like that I put a G2 on there, but I had to do what I had to do, All right. Your subscription details have been updated? Okay, thank you. All right, boom. All right, I'm going to refresh this page because I also want this to come to my personal email. Okay. Boom. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go back. Oh, whoops. So sometimes a window, when you click on a link, it'll pop up in a new tab right here. Or sometimes it will just take you to that page. In this case, we just need to hit the back button to go back, okay? All right, so I went ahead and I signed up for the updates. The 2023 Cdbg Home Policy Plan public hearing. So this was that public hearing that we missed. So we could go back, sounds like, and probably watch that and see what they had to say. And then there's some other quick links here. Bremerton Home Ownership Down Payment Assistance Program. Are some of y'all getting yourselves in a position to buy a home? Are you thinking about embarking on buying a home and you're like, hey, I'm going to have this 5 to 7 year plan of getting my credit right, saving for my 20% down? Maybe you take a look at this, right? And then the Bremerton Silverdale MSA income limits. I don't know what that is, but I don't think that's relevant to what we're looking at now. So we've taken a look at both sides here, and now we're just focused on the middle, and we're just going to click on these tabs and just go over them accordingly. So this first tab is where public comment will be heard. The 2023 City Bremerton policy plan is available here. Now, another thing we can do so we never lose our place marker is I'm going to right click and I'm going to open in a new tab. Okay, now you see it opened right here, and now that information is here. Let me show you again. Okay, if you want to keep your placeholder and you're doing all this research, and you can get lost because you've clicked 15 times, you don't know where you were, right click, open in a new tab, and it opens right to the right. Okay, and this is Exhibit A. City of Bremerton Community Development Block Grant. This is 48 pages. Table of contents here, an executive summary, talks about the Cdbg program, talks about the funding, home funding, allocation process, policies, regulations, citizen participation, and the consolidated plan, right? And then there's a few appendixes here, conflict of interest and things like that, which you always need to take note of. So I'm just going to kind of scroll down on this slowly. I'm not about to read 48 pages here. I just want you to have access to it. Again, I'll put this in the link in the chat here so you have it. But I will scroll slowly as you're watching with me, and I'll read things that I think ping interest. The priority identified for 5-year period are as follows. Capital projects in the city which demonstrate low or mod benefit. Infrastructure and capital improvements. Projects which improve and preserve affordable housing. Expand economic opportunities for very low, and moderate income Bremerton residents. And the city will reevaluate funding priorities during each program year with the release of its policy plan and NOFA. Some of the policy changes for 2023, the City of Bremerton home funding priority will be for increasing affordable housing stock, right? We know we don't have a lot of affordable housing, so that is good. I love seeing that. The NOFA will be for Cdbg housing, rehabilitation, economic development, micro enterprise assistance, and public facilities and infrastructure that meet the priorities outlined above and contained in the consolidated plan. And now here is the cream, Community Development Block Grant Program. What is the Cdbg program? Well, the Community Development Block Grant Program is a source of funds used in local community to provide decent housing, suitable living environments, and economic opportunities primarily for low and moderate income households. Sounds like G2. The City of Bremerton is designated as an entitlement community by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, and receives federal funds in the form of Community Development Block Grant. Kitsap County and the City of Bremerton together form a consortium and receive an allocation of the Home Investment Partnership Program, the Home Funds, through an interlocal agreement between the county and the city. A percentage as determined by HUD of the annual allocation of home funds is designated for the city and the remaining designated for the county. As the City of Bremerton is designated as a separate entitlement community, and therefore the city receives its own Cdbg funds directly. Cdbg funds are allocated annually every year through the city in request of funds proposals, RFPs, right? So we're just requesting money. Hey, can I get some money for this? Home funds are allocated annually through the competitive grant process. Oh, we got to compete. Coordinated by Kitsap County. Projects funded are included in the annual action plan submitted to HUD. Projects funded must address needs identified in the consolidated plan, which is updated every 5 years. Okay, so this part is important. So I didn't go to high school, but people tell me, high school, just like real life, is not often what you know, it's who you know. That's a part of it. Excuse me. Allergies, y'all. As such, building community and building relationship is paramount. One, so that you find out about these funds. Two, so that people can help you and tell you how to apply for these funds. And three, so that, you make sure that you have everything that's in there so that, let's say, all things being equal, there's 5 companies, right? They all have fantastic programs, all great programs, right? Well, you can only fund 2 of them. Which 2 do you fund? Well, there will be a grading process, right? And so in that grading process, unfortunately, bias is going to come in everything that we do. So with everything all being equal, 3 of those 5 organizations are going to lose out. Relationships and community are important. How you frame what it is that you're doing, the potential impact on what you're doing for the community is important, right? Do people value what it is that you do for the community? Let's say you feed folks. Let's say you do computer literacy. Let's say you provide transportation, right? All of these things are really important, but if you can't fund all of them, right, it's going to be what they believe is of most impact, right? And so you'll need help to ensure that your program is worded in a way that it's like, hey, man, I'll let you know all these other things are important, but let's say if you can't get there, it ain't going to be helpful for anything. So transportation is the most important, right? I'm using that as an example. Let me go ahead and hit my...
Stop the cap.
All right. But I'm giving you that as an example because you need a tangible example. So what are these funds? The Community Development Block Program is a flexible program, I like that word, that provides communities with the funding to address a wide range of unique community development needs. The program is authorized by Title I of the Community Development Act of 1974. Funds are used to assist in the development of decent housing, create suitable living environments, and expand economic opportunities primarily for persons of lower income. All projects funded within Cdbg must meet one of the 3 national objectives. Principally benefit low and very low income households. I do. Reduce or prevent slum blight, or meet an urgent need, emergency, or natural disaster. Or I would say food insecurity, homelessness, not being able to get to your mental health appointments and doctor's appointments. I think those are pretty urgent things. Who is eligible for an applicant? So this applies to all of us, right? Are we a city or a county government? Nah. Are we a public or a private nonprofit organization, 501c3? Oh, that is what G2 is. We are a federal 501c3. Hey now. Section 301D, small business or investment company, local development corporation, private for-profit organization may implement certain capital, economic development, and micro-enterprise activities. Please contact a block grant administrator to confirm if your activity is eligible. That would be Sarah, right? Faith-based organizations, restrictions may apply to ensure equal employment opportunity, right? So I know like the faith-based organizations I work with, they are definitely equal employment opportunity folks, and all are welcome. So for you churches out there or other faith-based organizations, you fit the criteria. Additionally, applicants must demonstrate an active governing body or board of directors. I got a board. Or other applicable leadership within your organization with skills and experience to provide leadership and direction to the agency. Yeah, we've been here for 4 years. We're about to turn 5 in February. Demonstrate the legal, but let me go back here. Yeah, we've been around for a while, right? But there are agencies, there are nonprofits that have just been formed during COVID that are being supported. Okay, so don't think that you need to, establish 1908. Just not true. Okay, demonstrate the legal. And let me say one other thing too. When you are applying to be a nonprofit, you've got to work with the with the with the government, federal government, right? And you're turning in your application. Well, this can take months for you to do that, right? But to have that tax exemption and to have that status, you may need it sooner than before. So what you can do is be fiscally sponsored by an agency that is a 501c3, tax exempt nonprofit, right? And that's what G2 did. So when we were first forming, there was a lag, and we were told, the paperwork was taking about 8 months. And it's like, man, we need to get rolling. We don't have 8 months. So we went to the KCF, Kitsap something foundation. And so I took my big binder in, my big binder in. I took our business plan in and rolled out what we wanted to do and who we were, and said, hey, we need a fiscal sponsor. And they charged us 10% to fiscally sponsor us, right? And what I was told at the time was there are scores of organizations that come in every year, right? And they want to be fiscally sponsored as they get it. And they only say yes to very few. Well, we were very organized, and so they said yes to us. And the irony was, or the coincidence, whatever. We ended up getting our fiscal sponsorship like 2 months later. It came almost immediately, and so we were good to go. But we were appreciative that an agency like KCF could see what we were trying to do and say, yeah, we'll fiscally sponsor you, right? But ultimately, we actually didn't even need it, which was great because the paperwork went through quick. Now it's taken a lot longer. Right now, we're going to be changing one of our organizations to a 504 or 503c4, I believe is what it is. And they're going to a paper process, so it's taking a little bit longer to do that. So just FYI on that stuff. Anyway, demonstrate the legal, financial, and programmatic ability to administer the proposed program and project. Okay, so how do you demonstrate this? Again, if you have a history of executing programs, eviction assistance, COVID, access, we've had probably now more than 10 grants or contracts, in our several years of existence, right? That is your proven, you're showing that you're a proven commodity, right? You might need to show your financials, right? So sometimes they want last year's financials, sometimes they want the last 3 years, right? They just want to know that if they give you money, is your program going to be able to continue to do what it needs to do? Can it do what you say that you need this money, right? And that's important. And what I would say here too is if you've got a program that's great, you're a really small organization, consider partnering with other organizations or larger organizations, right? You don't have to do these things alone. A great example of that is, hey, I partner with New Horizon Ministries. They have a building, so that gives us a space to exist, right? We can provide the food, we can provide the transportation. Okuye, like Living Life Leadership, they have all of that cultural experience, and they're subject matter experts on race and equity, right? And inclusion. And so they bring that. And so when you look at that dynamic, then you can build all those things together. You don't have to have all of those pieces, right? And there's enough for everyone. Everyone can work together. So whatever your dream is, however you want to serve the community, just consider that. You don't have to go it alone. Meet the city requirements for contracting agencies, such as insurance requirements, audit, and final requirements. That's what I was talking about here, right? Like we carry about $2 or $3 million of general liability insurance. That's one of the typically some of the bottom requirements of general liability insurance, right? And then if you've executed a contract with the county or other folks, right, then again, you've got that proven track record. You've shown that you're a good steward of funds, which we've been able to do. Funding priorities. All projects must, they underlined it, capped it, and put it in bold, right? All three. So pay attention to this. Meet one of the following consolidated plan funding priorities. Capital projects, which can demonstrate benefit to low, moderate income residents. Improve, create new units of, and preserve affordable housing. Expand economic opportunities for very low, and moderate income for Bremerton residents. Okay, there's so many different things that can fit in here, right? This capital project that is that can demonstrate a benefit could be a community center, right? But ask for Sarah for sure. I'm not an attorney, and I am not the steward of this. So I should put that caveat in there, right? For the 2023 program year, the following priorities for use of funds will be capital projects, which can demonstrate a benefit. Yep. Citywide economic development projects, citywide projects which create, develop, support, and preserve units of affordable housing, and public facility and infrastructure projects. And that could be like, maybe some of our road work and things like that you might be seeing there. Is my thought on that, maybe. What are eligible activities? Please contact the Cdbg staff. You saw her email earlier. To ensure your project is both eligible activity and meets national objectives. Note, the above list are not comprehensive. For the complete list of eligible or ineligible activities, refer to the Cdbg regulations in the 24 CFR 570.201 and the 570.207. So I would just copy and paste this, and once I found that file, I would paste it and it would take me right there. Beneficiaries of projects receiving these funds must have incomes below 80% of the area median income. That's a whole lot of us here in Kitsap County, so that's a pretty easy bar. LMI housing national objectives. If the grantee wishes to qualify a housing rehabilitation, acquisition, or construction activity under LMI national objectives, the housing national objective must be used. LMI area, LMI limited clientele, or LMI job creation may not be used. Okay. A LMI household must occupy a structure with one unit. 2-unit structures must have at least one unit occupied by an LMI household. If the structure contains 3 or more units, at least 51% must be LMI occupied. All right. When the housing rehabilitation or new construction single-family housing activities are conducted by the CD or a community development financial institution, or as part of a HUD-approved neighborhood revitalization strategy, multiple units, e.g. scattered site housing, may be aggregated for the purposes of meeting the LMI benefit national objective. Currently, the city does not have a CDFI or an approved neighborhood revitalization strategy plan. Rental housing, both new construction and rehabilitation activities that provide or improve permanent residential structures can only qualify as benefiting LMI households under the housing criteria of the LMI benefit national objectives, which deals with the occupancy of units by the LMI households. Okay, so I'll stop there on that. I think that might not really be applicable for those of us. So what is the distribution of these funds? The Cdbg program allows certain set-asides to further specific program goals. The city has set additional funding targets to help meet local objectives. The following is a distribution for the city of Bremerton. Planning administration is a 20% max. Citywide economic development projects, capital projects which can demonstrate low and moderate income benefit. And then here in Appendix C, provides additional information designed to assist you in defining the eligibility and national objective that your activity meets, and the type of information you will need to provide in your application. So an estimated 2023 entitlement is $400,000. Estimated 223 program income is $5,000 for a total of $405,000 for 2023. And then the 2023 funding available for grant administration, 20% of the entitlement plus program income, which is $81,000. And then the 2023 funding available for grant applications is $324,000. 15% is available for economic development programs if public service activity. Total remaining for capital projects, prioritization of capital projects will be for affordable housing projects, weatherization and minor home repair, and projects which create suitable living environments. So I don't know how this works here, but if you are a homeowner and you're on a fixed income, and I kind of look at fixed income as, hey, I go to work, but this is all I'm making, and I ain't got a raise in 3 years. That sounds like a fixed income to me. But depending on what your AMI is, you might, check into this and see if you can't, get some weatherization done, for your windows or some other things, right? I'm not going to read the home funds. I'll put that stuff here. I guess is what we were talking about, right? Beneficiaries of home funds, home buyers, homeowners, and or tenants must have incomes below 80% of the area median income. Hey, that's just what I was saying. The home program also requires a match of 25% or greater in other non-federal funding funds or projects. Okay. These are, so I will go over this really quickly. Rehabilitation of residential property. These are things that are eligible. New construction of residential property, acquisition of residential property, rental assistance, payments to tenants, reallocation associated with eligible home project. So all of these things kind of can follow in there. What is not eligible generally, project reserve accounts, except for the initial 18 months of a home assisted new construction project, emergency home repair, public housing units, commercial properties, shelters, unless they meet Section 8 housing quality standards, and otherwise can be considered rental housing and project-based tenant assistance. Okay. Some of the home priorities for the city of Bremerton is the preservation of affordable housing, increasing affordable housing opportunities, rehabilitation of older housing stock to increase affordable housing opportunities, acquisition with or without rehabilitation of rental housing units, rehabilitation of rental housing units, and site acquisition and new construction of rental housing units. Again, I wonder, we always have these conversations about all these empty buildings, right? Can the city acquire these buildings and build housing there? How much money is available? Priorities projects with that which create or support affordable housing. Rental projects must serve households at or below 80% AMI. Home assisted units must serve households at or below 60% AMI, with 20% serving at or below 50% AMI. And this kind of goes over the allocation process. And again, that's the home stuff. Policy and regulations, consistency with applicable city, county, and or state codes and policies. Okay, that makes sense. Contract retainage for federal compliance. City will withhold up to 10% of the award amount, including in written subrecipient agreement, until the federal compliance requirements are met. All construction contracts between the subrecipient, i.e. your agency, and contractor shall have a 10% of payment retained until fulfillment of federal compliance is documented. Definition of income here, project activity delivery cost, commitment and timely expenditure of funds. And this goes into the capital awards there. Okay. I'm going to scroll down and skip past a lot of this stuff. And let me take a sip of water. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please share this information with others. As I said, subscribe, like, and share. Please feel free to share this this podcast with folks and other agencies. All right, labor standards for construction. We can pass by all that. Reporting and monitoring. They're not going to give you any money and just let you have a free-for-all, right? You're going to have to probably get reports, give them updates. All right, here's the citizen participation plan. The city of Bremerton receives both Cdbg and home investment partnership funds. The city receives its own Cdbg funds as an entitlement, and the home funds through its membership in a consortium with Kitsap County. The city of Bremerton is committed to assuring opportunities for citizen involvement in decisions concerning activities taking place within the community. Each year, the city of Bremerton is eligible to receive these Cdbg and home funds. There are specific rules and regulations governing the allocation and use of funds, including provisions for citizen involvement in decision-making. In order to facilitate citizen involvement, the city has adopted a citizen participation plan. The purpose of the citizen participation plan, is to provide an ongoing mechanism to ensure widespread citizen participation, whereby all citizens have the opportunity to fully express their needs and wishes for community improvement. Special efforts will be made to encourage participation by low-income persons, particularly those living in blighted areas, residents of predominantly low and moderate income neighborhoods, minorities, and non-English speaking persons, as well as persons with disabilities. Okay. Notice of funding and availability and application. Annually, genuinely, in the spring and early summer, so next year we can get ourselves ready, a legal ad will be published in the newspaper of record to announce the funding availability. So this probably came out in the Kitsap Sun. So again, right, they have a threshold of how they have to let the community know, right? So they're like, hey, we put it in the Sun, we put it on the Kitsap County webpage, right? And that's the threshold, right? So if you don't read the Sun on that day, if you're not a subscriber to the Sun, you missed it. If you don't go to the website, you missed it. If you don't go to the city council meetings, you missed it. So the only way that you're going to get this is if you know someone, or now that you have been told today, hopefully, right? And there's other people that they're not watching now, so they missed it. There's going to be people that aren't going to, be one of the recipients that has this podcast shared with them. They missed it, right? And so you just have to continue to try to put this information out there. So oftentimes people will, get fatigued when it's like, well, I've heard this before. Why do they keep saying this? It's because we're trying to make sure that as many people hear about this information, right? You just weren't available at 11:30 on Monday morning to tune into a podcast, to hear about this opportunity for next year. And then you miss it. And then it's like, oh man, I got to wait another year. All right, this notice will begin a 30-day comment period on the policy plan, including the citizen participation plan, which includes the date and time of public hearings to take citizens' comments, right? So here, this is where we say, this is how this money should be used, right? This is important. And folks have to take that into account. And the more people that come with their voices, the more likely they're to take a serious look and say, hey, okay, all these citizens are saying this is where this money should go, right? So another reason why the conduit is now covering the city council meetings, because it is just that important, right? And, the game is, we're so busy, trying to live our lives and survive, we'll say we don't have time for this. And unfortunately, we've got to reprioritize ourselves so we have this. But one of the best ways to do it is to get a small group and split the work up. Many hands make light work, as the saying is said. So maybe I cover city council and you, cover React, or, you cover, whatever that case may be. And then you bring that information back to the group, right? So ways to slowly start being in the know. Notifications will also be sent to any agency or organization who requests to be placed on our interested parties email list, which you saw me do earlier, right? So I encourage you to do that. Upon approval of the policy plan by the Bremerton City Council, which is why we cover city council meetings now, information about the request for proposals and mandatory technical assistance session for first-time applicants will be available by request in writing to the City of Bremerton Community Development Block Grant, at 345 6th Street, Suite 100, Bremerton, Washington, 98337. And then you can get the planning here, or you can contact Sarah Lyman by email or by phone number, right? And I put that in the chat earlier. But you know what? Let me put it in the chat again. So it is at that same kind of timestamp here on the show. Okay. Flash that on the screen. All right. If you need any technical assistance, applicants for funding will be found in Appendix B. At any time, any citizen may contact the City Block Grant staff for technical assistance, help with the application, or general information in relation to programs described in this plan. Again, the only stupid question is the question not asked. Say that again. The only stupid question is the question not asked. There are no stupid questions. Ask questions. The department will help citizens understand CDBG and, the department will help us understand these funding programs, right? We don't have to be experts. They're there to help us, okay? So they're here to help us understand the programs, the procedures for submitting proposals, and the citizen participation plan and other program requirements so they can effectively participate in CDBG and or home programs and the funding process. So if you're this is what the department is for, okay? So be clear. They are here to help you understand and help you through the application process so you can effectively participate. Pause. All right. Conflict of interest. No member of the project review committee shall be beneficially interested, directly or indirectly, in any grant application which may be made by, through, or under the recommendation or PRC, in whole or in part, or which may be made for the benefit of his or her office, or accept directly or indirectly any compensation, gratuity, or award for connection in such contract from any other person beneficially interested therein, this RCW. No member of the PRC shall engage in any activity, including participation in the selection, award, or administration of the grant award or contract if a conflict of interest, real or apparent, exists. Additional information on remote interest can be found in the full conflict of interest policy under Appendix D. Funding recommendations and action plan. Organizations submitting applications will be notified whether or not the project review committee has recommended their proposal for funding. The City Council will consider the staff recommendation, will hold a public hearing on the proposal, will take public testimony, and will adopt the funding package. Notifications will include the date, time, and place of the public hearings, right? Those things have taken place. All projects approved for funding will be included in the city's action plan. A summary of each action plan will be published in a newspaper of record and on the city's website, right? Like I said, those were those two places where you're going to find this info. The summaries will describe the contents and the purpose of the action plans and include a list of locations where copies of the entire proposed plans may be examined. Citizens will be provided a period of 30 days to review and comment on the plans. Comments or views of citizens will be considered, and a summary of any comments or views not accepted and the reasons therefore will be attached to the final action plan, which will be submitted to HUD. The City of Bremerton will submit the action plan, including the projects proposed to be funded, to HUD no later than November 15th on each calendar year, unless HUD instructs the city not to submit until the appropriations bill has been enacted and HUD has notified the City of Bremerton of our actual allocation amounts. Okay, this just talks about a 5-year consolidation plan, consolidated plan, a needs assessment, a housing market analysis. These are things that Executive Director of BHA, Jill Stanton, talks about, right, in all of her awesome work and that organization. Here we go. The City of Bremerton will coordinate with the Bremerton Housing Authority, right? And they're on every Wednesday at 1 p.m. And this week it will be at 2 p.m. or at 3 p.m. Every Wednesday at 3, but this every third Wednesday is at 2. Substantial amendments. Okay. These just talk about the performance reports, what you need to do there. It's the information on the public hearings. Again, Sarah Lynham is that administrator there. And the Kitsap Sun is the newspaper of record. All right, so here is the funding process. And we've actually gone through 27 of the 48 pages. Program year funding specifics, we kind of looked at that a little bit earlier. Project Review Committee, that's the PRC, and the recommendation process. So there's just talks about how they do it. Qualification review. Applications are reviewed for potential disqualification using the following process. Applications are reviewed for completeness, soundness, and eligibility against the following criteria. Applications meeting one or more will be disqualified. At least 2 different staff members must agree that the application should be disqualified. Okay, so it needs to be complete. That means you fill out everything. It needs to be soundness, sounds like clarity, coherent. They need to be able to follow this. Sometimes we have these really great ideas, but it's really hard for us to explain. So it's good to have, someone else that has done this work before, someone else that has won these grants and contracts to look over and help to make it fit that soundness piece. And then, of course, it needs to be eligible, right? So the amount requested is not consistent among narrative questions, sources of financing form, budget form, or other applicant information. Okay, so that's the first one. Missing or blank attachments or forms, or using old versions of forms. So you'll want to make sure, usually if I'm going to apply for something that's really important, I like to have someone look over it. So I don't know if Sarah would do that, but if we got everything together, I'd say, hey, Sarah, here's our package. Are all these forms the right forms, or are there newer versions of those forms, right? And then make sure that if it's electronic, that your attachments are there. So I'm not sure the best way to ensure that your attachments reach the other side, aside from maybe calling Sarah, asking her, hey, once we submit, are you able to see, are all of our attachments actually there? Make sure that your attachments are named very clearly for what the attachment is. Maybe you have 5 to 10 different attachments you have to put in: a budget report, a project report, right? Whatever those names are, so that you don't accidentally submit the same attachment twice. That happens, right? You submitted it in different locations, but it should be something different. But it was named so close, you accidentally clicked on it, and now they see it. Well, it's not complete, right? Project or applicant organization is not eligible for the funding sources. And you should definitely know that before you even get started, because, that's work to put this together. Project does not meet the priority identified in the City of Bremerton Consolidated Plan for 2021 through 2025, or does not meet the Bremerton City Council funding priority, right? And again, we looked at those above, and you can also ask Sarah and say, hey, this is what we want to do. Does this fit? So you don't waste your time. The wrong application type is submitted for the project, right? So you worked on the Cdbg for the city, but it was for the other side. Whatever that case may be, it's the wrong one. It's like, hey, it's not complete. It's wrong, And a year is a long time to wait to serve your community when you were hoping to get these funds. So please take your time, do your due diligence here, and ask questions again on the other side. Don't submit and assume they got it because you got a receipt, Applicants will be notified of the results of the stage 1 review via email. Either an application is moving to stage 2 and the applicant will be contacted to schedule an interview, or the application is disqualified and the basis for disqualification is provided. Okay. Stage 2, reviewing and scoring. Applications are reviewed and scored for organizational capacity, financial soundness, and project priority. Staff members review and score all areas of the application utilizing scoring criteria specifically to each application. Project Review Committee members make funding recommendations using the following process. Review, evaluate, and score each application using review and scoring guidelines specific to each application type. Conduct interview with each applicant and score applicant interviews. Interview length will depend on application type. Cdbg Economic Development will have interviews consisting of the following: 20 minutes in length, which include 10-minute agency presentation and 10-minute question and answer. Capital Applications will have interviews consisting of the following: 35 minutes in length, which include 15-minute agency presentation and a 20-minute question and answer. The Funding Awards, the funding recommendations go through a multi-step process prior to finalizing the award amount. Project Review Committee, all Stage 2 applications will have a final score comprised of the Staff Application Review Score, PRC Application Review Score, and PRC Interview Score. The PRC will use a finalized score of applications to assist in making the funding recommendations and contingencies. The City Bremerton City Council, the City Council receives the recommendation from the Project Review Committee, holds a public comment period and public hearing, and makes the awards and contingencies. So I believe this is what happened Wednesday with, I believe with Tracy Flood and Judge Flood, and with Dr. Lillian Robertson. And so again, this Wednesday, they'll be talking about it again. So you can either watch it on the county's website, you can watch it on BCAT, or you can watch it here on the Conduit. Federal CDBG and home funds applications awarded for either funds must be included in the action plan associated plan and submitted to HUD for approval. The action plan cannot be finalized until the City of Bremerton receives the federal award amounts. Final awards, funding recommendations were made based on estimated funds. Once the actual amounts are known, awards will be adjusted based on the contingencies set by PRCs and approved by the Bremerton City Council. Okay. Project Review Committee, this just talks about the committee. 3 City of Bremerton staff members: Director, Department and Community Development, Finance Director, Community Development Project Assistants, 1 member from the City Council, 1 representative from the Planning Commission, and 2 citizens at large. And a representative from the Planning Commission is unavailable. Well, you know what? When you bring information and you ask questions, I'm gonna piss these folks off. So maybe I won't be getting any of these. The role of the committee is to read all applications and complete independent score reviews, review projects for community need and benefit, review evaluations, conduct interviews, and discuss rank and recommend projects for funding. The appointees to this committee are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the Bremerton City Council. Okay. The PRC will provide recommendations to the City Council, and the Council will have the opportunity to approve the final recommendations. Applicant interviews will be conducted with the PRC. Applications will have the opportunity to present the project, and the PRC will have the opportunity to ask questions. At the conclusion of the interviews, the PRC will formulate the funding recommendations for approval by the City Bremerton City Council. Okay. And the appointments for the PRC members are made annually, and they are appointed to serve a 2-year term and can be reappointed to serve successive terms or additional terms. Okay. So again, when we talk about equity and inclusion, you know, it's important. Who are these PRC members? What are their values? What are their priorities? They're the decision makers, right? So it's time now for us to get involved. Because if you're not at the table, all you can do is hold your hand out and hope that they'll pour something into your hands. Much better to be the person that is making the decisions, not the person asking. And if you don't like how things are going and you want to see things go in a different direction, yeah, you can vote. You can protest. But the true change is going to be representation of your interest. And who's the best person to represent your interest? You are. Power is taken and it's not given. All right, guys. All right. Eligibility requirements, and program rules. What are the national objectives? Again, we looked at all these already. And, sometimes read this stuff, and I'm just going to kind of just scroll through so you can see it again. If there's something that just pings your eyes to look at later, this is Appendix C. But some of this is restating things that were put before. But as you can see, we've been on here for an hour, and we're pretty much through this document. And I went through several other pages before we even got here. So it really doesn't take that long, but you do need to carve out some time to do it, right? This is the conflict of interest policy that we looked at before. Okay. You have to disclose, things of that nature. And then here's the glossary. So if you're looking for what do these terms and acronyms mean, right? The GRC. And when folks are in this work, they just throw around, acronyms like you have an understanding of what they're saying. Hey, the GRC and the CPP, you're like, what? You're like, I'm not down with OPP. All right. I'm dating myself there. Yeah, you know me. All right. So this is your glossary here, and that's that document. Again, let me go back to the top of this document. We just went through the City of Bremerton Community Development Block Grant. All right. And like I said, I opened up a new tab. This is where we went. Okay. And if we go back to the top, we have just made it to the third paragraph, right? We're now at the second link here. So we're going to open that in a new tab. All right. This is the 2023 Development Block Grant Notice of Funding Availability. This talks about the 2023 funding allocation schedule, about the funding, eligible applicants, eligible activities, funding priorities, funds available, the distribution, where to submit your application assistance, and with the application review, okay, and rating process project review. It talks about the committee, the HUD, income limits, and if your agency is awarded funds, okay? Here's your mailing address. Again, your contact person is Sarah Lineman. About the funding, we kind of looked at that before. This is a 20-page document here. This kind of shows how these things work, right? City of Bremerton, subrecipient or the applicant, the bidding, contractor selection, contract with contractor, construction, project closeout. It's the alphabet gang. Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. And I know it can be dry, so there's no way to make this interesting. Folks just don't hand out money like candy, right? You got to do some work. Look at this. Now let me read this one. The list is broken down by priority area. Please ensure your project both match the council priority and are an eligible activity. Number 1, capital projects which can demonstrate low and moderate income benefit either through limited clientele or area-wide benefit. Eligible activities are defined in Cdbg Program regulations. Examples include child care center improvements, clearance, demolition, and removal and rehabilitation of buildings and improvements, facilities for persons with disabilities, homeless facilities, not operating costs, removal of material and architectural barriers, park improvements, planning activities, preservation, rehabilitation, or restoration of historic properties. Someone's calling me right now. Preservation, rehabilitation of privately owned buildings and improvements for residential purposes, facade improvements, assistance to private individuals and entities, including profit-making and nonprofit organizations, to acquire for the purpose of rehabilitation and to rehabilitate properties for use or resale of resident purposes, sidewalks and street improvements. Projects that develop or projects that improve, develop, preserve, or create support affordable housing, acquisition and rehabilitation of rental housing. In REM housing, I don't know what that is, CDBG funds may be used to make its essential repairs and payment of operating expenses needed to maintain the habitability of housing units acquired through tax foreclosure proceedings in order to prevent abandonment or deterioration, such as housing in primarily LMI neighborhoods, low medium income. LMI, I think that's what the acronym was for. Conversion of closed building from one use to a residential use, such as a closed school building to a residential units. So could this be what happens with all those abandoned buildings? Conversion of closed building from one use to a residential use, such as a closed school building to a residential unit. Okay? The Sizzler, the Black Angus, the Denny's, there's so many buildings in Bremerton, right? New construction must be undertaken by a community-based development organization only. Site clearance and site improvements. Interesting. All right. Eligible applicants, public and private nonprofit organizations. Okay. Local developers, 301D small business investment companies, private profit organizations may implement certain activities, and faith-based organizations. Okay. Again, need to have a governing body or a board of directors. Demonstrate legal, financial, and programmatic ability, right? Meet the city requirements for contracting agencies, such as insurance, audit, and financial requirements, right? We've had multiple contracts with the county now. Demonstrate timely expenditures of funds and ability to complete the project in an effective manner. Okay. So, I should read this. Agency awarded funds will maintain an active City of Bremerton business license. They will maintain an active DUNS number and a SAM.gov registration. They will maintain minimum insurance requirements, and you can contact the CDBG administrator for those details. They will not subaward funds to any other entity, excluding construction or capital projects. Awarded funds will be paid to the subrecipient for eligible expenses on reimbursement basis. Okay, so this one is really important. So I would assume if you plan on working with another agency, they would probably be a part of the application, but you're not gonna subaward funds to another entity. Like, hey, we got this contract. Now we're gonna award you this contract, and do that part of it. So make sure that you check, right? You want to make sure that you're in compliance. And you also live here, and your organization is likely here. So, if you do wrong, you got a problem, It's not like you're just gonna, there's no other city of Bremerton that you can go to, right? So you definitely want to make sure that you do right, okay? Ooh, look at this right here. See, remember, you got to read everything in the red, right? How to access and submit the application. The online application via SM Apply will be available to download from the city's website beginning Monday, June 30th. Okay. You will need a computer with internet capability in order to access the city's website to access the application. Application can be found here. Let me go ahead and put that in a chat there so you have it. For those that are just listening, http s://apply-kitsap.smapply.io. Okay. Again, application link will be posted on the city website, and information will be sent to the city's interested party email list. The application submission deadline is July 28th. 10 days at noon, not 5. Not 5. Noon. Okay. So, a good rule of thumb, this application needs to be done on July 27th, y'all, because you only have that morning to get it submitted. And let me tell you, stuff can and will happen. You got computer issues. The submission process ain't working. Somehow the attachment isn't being is not allowing it to attach, right? The person that was supposed to submit wasn't there. Olympic College lost a huge millions of dollars because their grant person got sick and there was no one else to pick it up. And because it was highly competitive for all the statewide programs, all the community colleges or state schools nationwide, they were not given a reprieve. It was no, hey, I'm so sorry, I was out sick. OC lost that. Millions of dollars. It was horrible. Horrible. And they had a valid reason, right? It wasn't an excuse. The grant person was sick. And I think what was worse was the grant was actually sitting done, but that person was out. And they were like, sorry. And that program went away. Millions of dollars. So, oh man, there were technical issues. This happened. The dog ate my lunch. None of that stuff is riding. It wasn't my fault. Sorry, Charlie. July 27th. Please have it done the day before. If you can submit it the day before, even better. And it's in, and you're like, oh, it's in. I don't have to worry. Okay? Because stuff really does happen. That actually happened to us in one of the grants that we applied for recently. And the writer was back actually on her way back to Spain, and their flight got canceled. And she was trying to get her and her family onto another flight to get to New York. And, she apologized profusely, but we missed out on that opportunity. There was nothing that could be done, right? She's the grant writer. She was the submitter. The final piece went through her. There was nothing we can do. And it just so happened that, it was a great opportunity like this. We found out about it, really late in the game. So we did everything we could to get all of our I's dotted and our T's crossed. And she was working on vacation, right? So that was another thing is, she was willing to do it while she was on vacation and get it going. But that thing on the last day, no one could have planned for that. And bam, we lost out on that opportunity. And it does happen. And she was crushed by that. But, I roll a little bit different. So I understand, disappointed for sure, but things happen, right? And so what I'll say is don't procrastinate, do your due diligence, stay on top of it, prioritize it, right? If you have to use the Pomodoro technique, hey, we're going to set an hour and a half every day to work on this and get it done. Ask those questions and know, even if you're not a procrastinator, you might send an email to Sarah, the administrator for these grants. And it may take a while for her to respond. It may not be that, 2 hours, it could take a day or two, right? So you're losing time waiting for a response. So you can't put things off thinking that when you run into a question, you're just going to be able to send a quick email or call her up on the phone or go visit her, and she's going to drop everything that she's doing and she's going to be there. She could be in a meeting, she could be out, she could be sick, she could be on vacation. So you want to make sure that you're doing everything that you can so that you don't run into these unforeseen buzzsaws, okay? Now, the application review and rating process. This is a competitive application process for limited funding. Therefore, applications that meet all criteria are not guaranteed an award of funds, and successful applications may be funded for less than the amount requested. All right, so that being said, you can have the holy grail of programs. It's perfect. It's more than perfect. And you still don't win, right? And that's what I was saying earlier, right? Let's say there's 5 companies, all things being considered, you all get A's, but there's only enough money to fund 2. They got to, 3 people ain't getting money. That's a weird 3. Let me just do a 3 like that. I don't know why my fingers are going all crazy like that. You can only do 3. Or they can only do 2. 3 are going to get a no. You got a great program. We love it. We think it's awesome. We're so sorry we can't afford fund you. Try again next year. Now, what I would tell you is that's unfortunate, and that's real. And when programs get going, folks tend to want to continue to support those programs, right? Because now it's a proven program. So when you apply next year, well, we're probably still going to pick that one because we picked it the year before. Not a lot of money there. So if you look at the history and you go back, you'll see. And I talked about that yesterday. If you look at the program yesterday, I pulled up the Excel document, right? Coffee Oasis, KCR, right? You will see them year after year after year, proven commodities. So how do you get your program there to where they're like, you know what? All of these are A's, but we're going to fund this one this year. How do you do that? All right. Applicants, and then also this one is important too, right? This also happened to us. We were awarded an award through Commerce this year. And actually, I think we did get our award amount. I think we did. I think we got our full amount. But there were scores of agencies that did not. And I mean, it was significantly lower from what they asked for. And so when they talk about that completeness and what was that second word? I'm going to use coherent, clarity. Can they really understand and envision what it is you're trying to do? Of course, it has to be eligible, right? Those 3 things. For us, it was so coherent. It was so clear, right? That they were like, yeah, we're going to fund this. Okay. We applied for the 1/10 of 1% tax that we all agreed to as citizens here in this county for mental health. And we didn't get that. What we thought, we turned in an awesome application. We moved from the first round to the second round. But the people that reviewed the contract or the grant, they couldn't see. It wasn't coherent enough for them. So they didn't see, they thought, oh, you're doing such good work in the community. Good for you. We don't get it. But we love what all these other people are doing, right? We can get that, right? And ours was for transportation, right? And it's like, well, again, no bus service on Sundays. Folks can't get to, buses stop running after 8:30. Folks got lots of places to get to, and this is a big county. They didn't see the value in it, right? So we'll try again next year. And then, Cody from Kids Up Strong, he said, hey, Marwan, don't feel bad. We've applied for this grant 4 or 5 years, and I think they only received it once, right? Definitely better well-known, better reputation, better community and relationship, right? Because that's what they do. And they don't even get it every year, right? So it's don't take it personally, even though it can feel like it's personal, right? Because you know what you do. You know how hard you work. Don't take it personal. Tool and come back the next year stronger than ever and work on those deficits. So you definitely, my advice that I can give to you is if you do not meet the requirements here and you don't move further, written notice will be sent to the disqualified applicant. If you are disqualified for whatever reason, you want to know why, right? You want to know why, because this is every year, right? So next year, You want to answer those no's and turn those no's to yeses, right? You still have an opportunity. The glass is still half full, right? It's just you need to resubmit that paper, go do some more research and come back next year. I know it's a year, but you're also not putting all your eggs in one basket and looking for one pot of money. Okay. Applicants will need to demonstrate that they are able to spend down funds in a timely manner and that they will have the capacity to complete the program. So that's important too, right? We were just asked that question, for a contract that we just received. It's like, well, can G2 meet the capacity of, the influx of what's going to come in? And it's like, yeah, we can. But you have to demonstrate, well, how are you going to do that? If transportation increases by 20%, what do you have ready to meet that need, right? Are you currently able to do that? Do you have enough drivers? Do you have enough vehicles? Do you operate, during the hours of operation? If all of a sudden you have 4 rides in the same hour, could you accommodate that when you've only been doing 2 rides in an hour, right? So you have to justify all those things. And so you have to say, well, actually we have 4 vehicles and we have 8 drivers and we're bringing on more every day. And through, this grant or contract or through this revenue that comes in, we're going to be using some of that money to purchase a new van, which is what we did this year, right? We purchased our first wheelchair accessible van. And so those are things that you have to be able to speak to, right? To put them at ease. I hope that's helpful. All right, so the applications will go through the following review and rating process. Initial eligibility screening. The application complete. The applicant meets eligibility requirements of the application due date, right? As of the application due date, right? So, maybe you're waiting on something to come through, but by the time that's due, you need to meet all of these eligibility requirements. Project or activity is eligible for use of funds, staff and technical review. You need an organizational financial review. The RFP will be reviewed. City will review for agency financial soundness, right? So our bookkeeper and our tax person had to do that for us. What did we apply for? Oh, we applied for a $50 million grant. We were definitely punching above our weight class, but we went for it anyway. But this was one that we had to do, and we met the requirements for the organizational financial review, right? You have to have an external person come in and look at your stuff, right? You probably saw in the Kitsap Sun that one of these nonprofits was having some issues with this before. So you're using other people's money, so you got to do right by the money. They're not playing that. Okay. Organizational capacity. Staff will review the capacity of the agency to manage grants based on the previous grant performance, right? Previous grant performance. Your board makeup. Who's on your board? What are their knowledge, skills, and abilities? In different grants or contracts, sometimes they just want a list of names of who's on your board. And then at other times they want to know what do these board members bring to the table for you? What are their area of expertise, right? Well, I taught business management. I've been a previous business owner. I've been a commissioner for the Bremerton Housing Authority, right? I have this myriad of experiences in education. I have a master's degree in education. I have a bachelor's degree in business management, right? Our president was a general contractor in construction for many years, right? He's a master carpenter. So those are the things that you have to be able to speak to, right? Project priority review. Staff will review project goals and serve for alignment with the funding priorities, right? Are you actually serving the community that you're saying that is going to be served? And does that align with the grant or the contract that you're going for? And I'm speaking in general here, not just this particular opportunity, right? And then the review committee. So this goes again to the PRC, which you can read. I'll skip over that. And then project review committee. Volunteers are selected based on their knowledge of the community needs and willingness to donate their time. PRC activities, PRC members must demonstrate the specific skill, qualifications, and background needed to evaluate applications and recommend funding, such as, okay. Sorry for that pause there, just my phone is going crazy. Affordable housing, architecture and planning, compliance monitoring, practical experience with HUD, construction project management, economic development, finance and accounting, grant writing or grant management, homeless programs, housing development, mortgage lending, nonprofit community service provider, project management experience, and real estate. Okay, looking at this list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 14 here, I probably have 7 of these, right? And I don't think you need to, have multiple of these, but these are one of these subsets is what they're looking for. And again, this is what's important, right? The project review committee. Who is the project review committee? They review and recommend who should get the money. Who recommends and gets the money? It's not you. It could be you. So if you don't like where the money is going, you might consider being a project review committee. Maybe you don't have an organization. Maybe you're not running any program. But you know what? You know what's a priority to you. And you have experience in this, right? I don't think this is a heavy lift here in regards to scoring and listening to that information, right? But when we wonder why our government and why things never seem to work out in the ways that we want them to work out, this is one of those ways, right? Because everyone that comes to this is coming with their own domestication. They're coming with their own experiences. They're coming with their own values, their own morals. What they think is important, what they experienced. So maybe to them, home ownership is really important. Maybe they're in construction. That's important to them. But for you, it's, man, construction is great, but if they can't live in it, that's more important. So not only should this be titled, Are You Looking for Money? But do you want to be in a power seat to decide who gets the money? Because you can do that too. And we need folks like you to be in these positions, because that is what's going to change things ultimately. And the last thing I'll say is, when we have folks that we elevate and we vote for and we send them in to the machine to make the changes, but when the machine is still set the way that it is, how can it change? Let's say you voted for your city council person. The city council person is going to vote on who gets the money, right? They'll make their recommendations based on the project review committee. But no one's even thinking about being a part of the project review committee. So now you're here as an advocate for what we believe in, what we think is important, but they can only choose from a list that doesn't do anything for you. And you're like, well, where's the people that are doing this? And where's the agency that's doing that? Oh, well, sorry, they didn't make the list. So I encourage you not to get so enamored in voting, but be more enamored in being a part of the decision-making process. And this is a huge part of the decision-making. This is how companies either sink or swim, how they grow or how they just maintained at a level where they could do so much better. You ever gone to a company and, I mean, you guys are awesome. You guys do great work and everyone should know about it. And it's like, man, they should just be giving you money if they just knew. I was like, well, maybe they do, but the committee doesn't value that the way that you do. And the only way that's going to change is if you become part of the project review and you become the person who decides where that money goes. And you don't have to start a business. In some ways, this is more powerful because there's a lot of good agencies that are out there doing it, right? All right, I digress. Thank you. All right, so that is that document here, okay? So again, we're going to go back. We've gone over 2 links. We're here on the main page. We're only down here. This was paragraph 2. That was the first document I went over. And this was the notice of available funding PDF. That's the second one that I went through, right? So number 3, the online application will open June 30th. Now, the only thing that is, only a little sad is this opened on the 30th. So we've missed 18 days, right? Almost 3 weeks. And it closes pretty quick here, okay? Now, coordinated application site. I'm going to open that in a new tab. Ooh, that's tiny. All right, y'all. Here's another one. Upcoming maintenance. We'll be performing maintenance on SurveyMonkey, and that's what SM was. I didn't know what SM was. It's for SurveyMonkey. Apply on Tuesday, July 19th, 2022 at 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so 11 p.m. At this time, the system will be unavailable for 15 minutes. So you late night workers like me, at 11 p.m. tomorrow, it's going to go down for about 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, so just know that. All right, I got to accept the cookies. Can I do cookie preferences? No, I don't want no advertising cookies. Yeah, always go into the cookie preferences if they allow you to do that, okay? I don't want no advertising. I just want what's required and what's functional. Don't be advertising to me. You wonder how you did a search for Doritos, and then all of a sudden you searching for other stuff, and Doritos just keeps popping up everywhere. It's like, yeah, that's how they get you. You know? I mean, wow, I want Doritos. Search for them. All right, welcome to the KidSAP Coordinated Grant Application site. The Coordinated Grant Application process brings together separate funding sources utilizing a common application site. Fantastic. So if you're applying for one, you'll learn the process is the same, so it'll be easier for future. This site is used for applications for federal Kitsap County and City of Bremerton CDBG and home funds and local affordable housing, homeless housing, and homeless grant funds. We hope this online application is a positive and efficient experience for you and your agency. The site will be used by both Kitsap County and the City of Bremerton for RFPs and NOFAs issued during the 2022-2023 application cycle. Agencies will be able to submit one organization information application that can be utilized for all RFPs and NOFAs. There will be no application this year for Kitsap County homeless housing, affordable housing, validated homeless grant funds for shelter operations or homeless housing and services. For information regarding the application process, including the schedule instructions, visit our websites at Kitsap County, www.kitsap.com/HS pages /HH coordinated grant application process .aspx, or the City of Bremerton, https://www.bremertonwa.gov /198 /federal grants CDBG. All right. I'm going to put both of these links in the chat for you. Okay. So you have them there. Flash those up there. It's all right. All right. Getting started. Click on the general instructions. to download the instructions that will provide overall information in the steps to start and submit an application and how information is collected. Click on any of the instructions below to download. Download. Organizational information, the home buyer housing, rental housing, housing rehabilitation, micro enterprise, public facilities and infrastructure, public services, micro enterprise, job training, and capital. The ones that I'll take a look at is organizational information. So let's go ahead and download that one. And we'll go ahead and open that as soon as it's done. All right. All right. As I said, I hope this is helpful and informative to you. Okay. All right. So now I've got to close this out and show you. You know what? I can show you the entire screen. That'll make it easier for me. Okay. All right. So this is the Organizational Information 2023 application instructions. Using the form fields below, fill in your organization's information. So Gather Together, Grow Together is our legal name. I am the executive director. Our mailing address is 419 Park Avenue or a different one. My phone number is 360-990, yada, yada, yada. My email address is gather2grow@g2.org. Our EIN number is your federal or employer identification number, or for us, it's a federal tax identification number that you should already have. And then if you have not, you need to apply for SAM. Your mission statement, right? What is your organization's mission statement? What does your organization do to accomplish this mission? So our vision is self-sufficiency for all Kitsap County residents. And we do that in a myriad number of ways: transportation, food, job training, job readiness, mentorship, resources. There's a lot. I definitely would need more than 200 words for that. And when this happens, what I do is I use bullet points, right? Because I have to keep it short. Organizational history. We have been here for 4 years, and in those 4 years, we da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Again, only 2,200 words. So 750 words is 1 page, single space, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I taught, so I believe that is it. I think that's single space. It could be double space, but 750 words is not a lot of words. 200 words is small. So you actually have to be succinct. And here you will see some compound sentences, some run-on sentences, 1,000 commas. So again, remember, they want coherent, right? Clarity. So it is really important that you have a proofreader take a look at these things. Shout out to Stephanie. Get it down, get it all down. Don't even worry about it. Don't single space. Thanks, Rev. Don't struggle, and think that it's got to be perfect while you're typing. Just get it down, because what's coming out of your head is good stuff, right? Someone can go back at the end and start to cut out things and take out the ands and the buts and the therefores and all that stuff, right? And keep it as brief as possible. So it's a good thing, but it's a hard thing because it's only 200 words. The type of applicant. From the list provided, select which of the organizations represents the applicant, okay? The organizational chart, right? So for us, it would be me as the head, the executive director, or really technically the board, because they're my bosses, right? And so all of my board members. And then, if there are different departments, let's say we have Grammarly. Yes, I have Grammarly. Or I used to. Let's say transportation, there's a head of transportation who is Ernest for us. And then we have our drivers underneath. So that's how that hierarchy would go. Then we have our food program. So we have our food manager, we have our cooks, we have our volunteers and all that good stuff. We have our job training program. We've got computer literacy. We've got our case management, and on it goes, right? So we have all of these different hierarchies for our organizational chart, right? And different ones will want you to go to different levels. Usually, they typically are looking for, who's the executive director, who's your board, right? And as I was saying or showing you before, they're looking at, do you have an organized board, or leadership that oversees the organization? That's what they're looking for here. Okay. And so here, upload the agency's organizational chart. This chart should show all staff. Now here, they're asking for it all, right? So again, completeness is important. So take your time to read this. They're looking for all staff, board, and volunteer positions. The FTE, which is full-time employment assigned to each person, and indicate if that position is currently vacant, right? So full-time enrollment is someone working 40 hours a week, right? So 2 part-time people would equal 1 full-time person, right? 20 hours a week. Okay, so that's something that you're looking for there. So you would list all of that. So let's say me as the executive director up here, right? I should open up a blank document. I think you guys can get it. Yeah, I'll just do it this way. I won't open up a new one. I'll do it right here. So you've got me as the executive director here, and then this row would be all the board members. Then you've got transportation, food, case management, and under transportation, you've got the head of transportation here. You have the paid drivers, you have volunteer drivers. If you had helpers, those helpers would be listed. And let's say I have 3 paid people. So this was a paid employee. This is a paid employee. I need 3 drivers, but right now this is a vacant position. Then you would list it and just say that this is unfilled, right? And again, always check with Sarah to make sure that your completeness is complete. Your parent organization. In the text box provided, describe your local unit's relationship with the parent organization. If there is no parent organization, select NA. So the conduit is an entity, right? Underneath, gather together, grow together, right? So if I was applying for this for the conduit, then I would list the conduit and its board members and its employees and its volunteers. But then I would list as the parent organization, gather together, grow together, right? As an example. Are you a government organization? Nope. Board members, download the form provided and enter each board member's information on the form. If additional positions are needed, copy and paste the table to a new page as many times as needed. Upload the completed form. If you are a government organization, you can skip. Okay, board involvement. There are 3 parts to this question. 200 for the narrative response. Okay, that's your word limit. In a text box provided, discuss your board's involvement in the organization, including how often the board meets, involvement in fundraising, involvement in implementation of the organization's strategic plan. And so here, I have a working board, right? So our board meets once a month, and that's typically how boards meet. All of our board is involved in our fundraising. So when we're at events and we're selling candles or selling food, that's our fundraising. When we sell our Krispy Kreme donuts and do those things, right? That's part of it. The conduit, if we're fundraising through here. Involvement in implementation of the organization's strategic plan. Like I said, I have a working board. So my board works on the website and, works on, technical logistical things. My board does case management. My board drives. My board cooks food. Our board does case management. Our board does it all, right? It's a working board. And so you want to articulate that you have a working board and then put a small snippet, because you only have 200 words, right? That the board is, maybe you say the board is a working board who participates in the day-to-day activities of the organization. And then you'd run that past someone like United Way or a KCR or a Kitsap Strong or Sarah herself, and you say, okay, is this clear enough that this is how the board operates, right? And they can give you some pointers. Another place that I would go is, and the reason why I've definitely mentioned KCR might be Coffee Oasis, right? People who have received these grants in the past obviously have scored high enough to win these funds and to get recommendation, right? So what they did works. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, okay? 2, upload the organization's bylaws, okay? So you should have bylaws. Our bylaws are pretty long. It can take some time to create bylaws. So, again, for some of you, this may not be something that you're jumping on this year, but you're getting your ducks in a row for next year. I know, like when Up From Slavery started, I gave them our business plan, our 38 page plan. It was like, here, use what you can, take the meat, throw out the bones. Upload the minutes of the annual board meeting and the most recent board meeting. Okay, so you got to take minutes, which is take notes, right, of your annual board meeting. So once a year, you should have a big one. And my staff is probably due for a retreat. I should not say that very loud, because last time I took some of the board to New Orleans, and I took most of the board to Oregon, to Seaside, Oregon, and most of the volunteers and staff. So that was a lot of fun. Staff and board profile. This question has 2 narrative responses. In the first text box provided, describe how race, ethnicity, age, income level, and experience of your agency staff and board reflects the community and mission of the organization. All right. So, we are an African American Black 501c3 nonprofit, tax exempt. Our age varies, our income level, they vary, and our experience in what we do. Most of us have experienced homelessness, have been or currently low income, pretty much, have struggled with transportation. Yeah, pretty much everything we do, our board has lived experience here, In the second text box provided, discuss if your organization has had changes to key staff or positions in the last 12 months. Examples could be, maybe they got a new executive director. They got rid of me? No. Program supervisor or fiscal manager, right? If that's changed, they want to know that, right? Because you've had some change in your organization in significant key roles. Your agency budget, upload your organization's total budget from your accounting system. It can be uploaded in an Excel, Word, PDF format, but should be easily viewed on a screen without a lot of scrolling. Okay, so that means you've got some work to do, so that whatever format you send this in, when they open it, it's going to be easy for them, right? If they have to fight through this, they're just going to give it a lower grade and move on. They're not going to have that zeal and zest for looking through what you're doing that's so awesome. It's like, yeah, they're great, but man, this is so hard to read. All right, where's the next one? I'm done with this, right? The budget submitted should show the following: an annualized, yearly, based on your organization's fiscal year, and show revenues and expenses, right? Your bills and money coming in. 3 years side-by-side budget depicting prior year, current year, and next year. Okay. Now, when you do your personal taxes, if you're using the same person, like I use a tax company for my taxes, I'll see my 2018, my 2019. I won't see my projected next year because they don't know what that is, but that's what your bookkeeper is doing, right? You have an idea of what money is coming in. Some of that's going to be based on this year's dollars, and some of it may be, hey, we're going to increase our sales in candles by 15%, or we started selling candles at the second quarter of this year. So next year, we're going to have a full year of candle sales. So this is what we project the budget to be, right? We've got another grant coming in that comes in. And so we're going to have this money that hits this time. So, again, that's your bookkeeper. A column showing the variance between the current year budget and next year's budget. Okay. Is your budget going up? Is it going down? What areas is it going up and down? Things like that. Your financial statements upload separately. The following financial statements representing a record of the financial activities of the organization. Most recent income statement, profit and loss, showing revenues and expenses, with a budget comparison column showing year-to-date budget and year-to-date actual, right? So oftentimes you're going to project, right? Like if I'm projecting for 2023, I might say, hey, we're going to sell $5,000 in candles, right? Which would be fantastic if that's what happened. But when we get there, we only sell 4,000, or when we're turning it in, let's say, we're turning it in at the end of July 30th, right? We've only sold 4,000. So we projected 5,000, but what it actually is $4,000, right? Most current balance sheet, statement of financial position showing assets, liabilities, and equity, right? So what are the things that you own? What do you owe? And what kind of equity do you have, right? Most current monthly cash flow statement depicting movement in cash and bank balances for operating activities, investing activities, and financial activities, right? So that's important. And you'll see that in your personal life too, right? They want to make sure that you can actually, do the things that you need to do. Okay, are you going to be able to pay your staff? Can you put gas in the vehicles to get them around? Or is there an issue there? Internal financial oversight. Okay, so who are the qualified people responsible for your financial oversight in your organization? And so they want to know both staff and board members and how this oversight happens, right? So oftentimes in organizations, maybe you have an office manager who's your bookkeeper, right? But then there should be someone who's on the board that is overseeing your finances, your budget, right? And another person on the board might be the transportation person, right? In small organizations, they might be doing double and triple duty. And then you have your external person that's doing your financial oversight, which is here, number 14. From the drop-down list, select the type of outside oversight your organization typically receives, right? And, you can have, different services. I believe ADP can do bookkeeping and do payroll for you. You can have an external bookkeeper who's making sure that your books are right and everything is good there. Your government grant fund experience. In a text box provided, describe your organization's experience managing government grants, funds, loans, and other types of financial assistance. So here we would talk about, all of the different money that we've had come in, and this is government grants. So, for us, that would be our commerce grants, our contracts through the county, right? And again, though, this is your resume. This is your business resume, right? Your audit. Did your organization receive an audit, a financial review, or compilation, including management letter? Mark yes or no. If complete, A, B, and C. If no, state why and move on to the next question. So again, we just applied for a $50 million grant. So this was required, right? We had to have a financial review. Now, a financial review can cost, anywhere between $1,500 to $2,500, depending on where you're going. An audit is super in depth. This can cost, I've seen this up to $15,000. So an audit can be really deep. Now, I'm not trying to scare anyone. Most of the things that you're trying to go for, they're not going to require an audit, right? These are probably multi-million dollar, companies that are doing work here. But a financial review can be kind of costly, right? If you need to get that done. But you do need that external financial oversight to make sure that everything is on the up and up, right? And you want that. And the more that you show that you are a good steward of money, the more likely you are to continue to get more money, right? I mean, it's like that saying, it takes money to make money, is in a lot of ways true, right? So someone finally gives you a grant, someone finally gives you a contract, you got to execute that, right? And when you execute it, you say, hey, look, you gave me $20,000. Look how well I did with this. Can I have 40, right? Or I did $20,000 with the city. Hey, county, could you give me 40,000? Oh, well, let's see what you did with the city. Were they a good steward of that 20 grand? Yep, they were. They did everything. Everything was cool. Okay, we'll give you 40,000. All right, county. Or all right, commerce. You're the state. Look, the city gave us 20 grand. The county gave us 40,000. Can we get 500,000? Okay, well, let me go look and see what the county did. All right, were they a good steward of that 40,000? Yeah, they did everything right. Everything was good. Hey, city, how did they do with that 20,000? Yeah, everything was right. Everything was good. All right, you got a proven track record. We're going to go ahead and give you this $500,000, assuming, because it's competitive, that you win the competition, right? All right, cool. And then that's how you grow, right? You're building your financial legacy, right? You're building that reputation there. And again, if you need help, get help here. Okay? Get help here. It's like the parable of the talents. Go ahead, Rev. See, the Rev always preaching. Audit. I just read that. Okay. So upload your organization's most recent audit, financial review, or compilation, including management letter. B, audit type. Indicate if your last audit was a single or program-specific audit, right? So we could just audit transportation. We could just audit food, or we could audit the whole thing. Organizations that receive $750,000 or more in federal funds in a fiscal year must have a single audit conducted in accordance with these guidelines. Scope of audit, except when it elects to have a program-specific audit. Okay, so we haven't reached this yet. I have a goal of I want to hit 2 million here in the next 3 years, which would be great. Then we would need an audit, right? Now, 1%, I believe that's 1%, $7,500 or 15,000, which would be 2%, 10%, 75,000. 75,000 would be 10%, 75. Yeah, 2%. So 2%, 15,000 of this might need, I got to make sure I get an audit so that I can get this done, right? Because now I've got more than $750,000 and they're going to require this audit. So think about that. As you grow, right? More money, more responsibilities. More money, more problems. True story. Audit findings. Indicate if there were any findings or concerns in your most recent audit. Please explain and cite any improvements that were resulted in your agency's response to the audit. So I think what they're saying here is, they understand things can happen, right? But you need to justify what happened, why it happened, and how you're going to ensure that it's not going to happen again, right? What kind of new things have you put in place so that, you're not going to have this experience again, right? Litigation and audit findings. Indicate whether your organization have any litigation, IRS problems, or unresolved audit findings. I'm going to go ahead and give G2 the horn because we ain't got none of them. Financial contact. Using the form, fill in your agency's accountant, bookkeeper, or contact information. And so we would put our person there. Your IRS 990, okay, your tax return. Your annual report. Indicate if your organization produces an annual report that is made available to the public. Some do, some don't. Allowable cost. Indicate by marking yes or no. If your organization is familiar with procedures for determination and allowance of cost in connection with federal grants and contracts in accordance to the 2 CFR Part 200, okay? And read this, right? Read this so you do have an understanding of what this is. Talk with Coffee O. Talk with KCR, right? Fiscal control policies and procedures, right? Do you have these policies and procedures that should arise? How do you address cash? How do you, they want to make sure, hey, who has access to these bank accounts? We just gave you $40,000, and then you come and tell us, well, someone took out 15,000. It's like, what you mean someone took out 15,000? Who's authorized to do that? What control do you have in place so that those things ain't gonna happen? Expenditure authorization process, separate of duties, banking account, reconciliation, budgetary controls, financial reporting, and board oversight. Is this information, if this information is contained in a separate document, combined into one document for upload, okay? So they're giving you something here, right? Completeness, clarity. Got to follow the instructions there. That could be one to miss. Indicate if the coordinated grant application staff has a copy of your organization's most current fiscal control policies and procedures. If you don't have one, you need to create one, right? And you are going to have turnover. So you're going to have new employees come in. And so they need to come in and know what your policies and your procedures are. Again, you can Google those, and I would do that based on, the sector that you operate in. If you know of different organizations, you can ask them, like I said, with Up From Slavery, it's like, hey, here's my business plan. Use what you want from it, and then kind of go from there, right? And again, that business plan that I gave to Up From Slavery was the same one that we gave to KCF that agreed to fiscally sponsor us, right? So it was like, this worked. Procurement, purchasing policies and procedures. What are your policies and procedures to address standards used to purchase goods and services, right? So who gets to purchase goods and services? And competitive process used to obtain the best quality price, right? Like, well, we had to buy this, but we just went with the first most expensive person. Like, no, we ain't going for that. Non-discrimination policies and procedures. What kind of policies and procedures should cover employees, volunteers, and clients and tenants, right? This is very important for you to have. Okay. By checking and understanding that my program may not require participation in religious activities in order for participants to receive services. Participation in religious activities must be voluntary for service beneficiaries, right? So this is definitely for churches and other faith-based organizations, right? So as long as you can say this, that you understand that, hey, I'm not requiring participation in any religious activities. You don't have to come into worship service. You don't have to come to Quran study or Bible study. Then you're okay, right? Participation in religious activities must be voluntary. Doesn't mean that they can't participate. It just has to be voluntary, right? And you can't require people to do so in order to receive services. All right. That's it. This really isn't a lot here for us, because we've been doing this and we have, most of these things already done. We might actually have to redo some of these things here as far as our mission statement being under 200 words. Like, what does your organization do and how does it accomplish? I'm very loquacious and long-winded, so I might need to retool that. The organizational chart, because they want full, we might have to actually add to our organizational chart. And a question might be, well, no, they're saying they want the whole thing and not just the program, right? So let's say we were just doing this for transportation. My question would be, can I just do the organizational chart for transportation, executive director, board of directors, and then the transportation leg of the organization? Or do I have to, put in the conduit and put in food and put in case management and put in job training? Does all of that have to go in there? So that's a question you would want to ask, right? Your board members, your board involvement. Again, this is only 200 words. So I know I have to retool this because the last grant that we applied for, the $50 million one, this was huge, right? They wanted, a lot more information here. Let's see, staff and board profile. Okay. The budget, this was done. So this is already set. Now, again, we're blessed. We have a grant writer. We use we have a consultant firm that we consult with, and they write our grants for us. And we have outside bookkeepers and accountants that make sure that everything is good for us. But if you don't have that, then if you're already started, then you've already been working on these controls. What I'm doing is just kind of showing you what they're going to be asking you for. And maybe, hopefully, you've done some of this before. If you haven't, and you're thinking about starting an organization, or you're at the beginning, these are the things that you are going to be looking to do as you are applying and wanting to be competitive with local, state, and federal grants and contracts that come your way. Okay, so these are things to be looking for in the horizon. Don't be afraid. It's just it'll come. Okay, and ask questions. But again, that's why it's important for you to get to know folks. Right? Whoops, I did not mean to do that, y'all. I apologize. There, let me get that back up. Which one are we looking at here? That wasn't it. This one? That wasn't it. All right. Just give me a second to get that back. Oh, let me show you this while I have it up. Hey. All right. So here you can see this is the 2022 Cdbg grant application for funding. This came off of the website for the city. Okay. And as you can see, funding for the grant administration, 20%. Right. The estimated entitlement was $450,000. $90,000 for funding administration, right? Funding for public service job training up to 15%, $67,500, and funding for capital projects and micro enterprise programs, $292,500. Okay. Now, when we go over here, you see PRC preferred, right? This was that recommendation committee, right? And this is the backup recommendation. All right. And so what you're doing now, and now we can read this Excel document more wholly than we could the other day. Right. So this is what these folks recommended. And this is the backup recommendation if no ARPA funding is utilized and only CDBG funding is awarded. Okay. And then here is the Cdbg Awards on this column E, right? And now we can look and we can see grant administration for the city of Bremerton, $90,000 as it's said above, right? And then we can look over here and we see this job training program. That's why I kept mentioning Coffee Oasis, right? They're here. This is their Hope Incorporated job training program. And their applicant score was an 89 out of 100. They requested $79,750, right? They requested, a little bit more than this 15% for the job training, right? Now, this was not funded by CDBG money. This was awarded by the ARPA, and they got their whole amount. Okay? That's why I keep saying Coffee Oasis has executed this successfully. And an 89 is a B. Okay? So it wasn't perfect. It wasn't even the highest score on this list. All right, capital projects and micro enterprises, City of Bremerton Parks Department, they got a 93 out of 100. So even the city park didn't even get a perfect score. They got a 93. They got the highest, or tied second for the highest. They asked for $132,000, and this was CDBG money. The City of Bremerton Public Works and Utilities, they got an 89%. Right, just like Coffee Oasis, they asked for $219,295. They got it. KCR, weatherization and minor home repair, they got a 93 out of 100. They requested $50,000 It did not come from CDBG. That came from ARPA funds. Okay? 50 grand. KCR also asked for $60,000 for their best program. Now, this one got the lowest score, right? That's a C+, barely a B. They got an 80 out of 100. They asked for 60 grand, and they got 60,000 out of ARPA, okay? And the reason why I'm calling out the 80 out of 100 is I don't want you to be terrified and feel like you have to be perfect, right? It is hard to get a perfect score. Do not let that stop you from going for these things, right? This was good enough for $60,000. You know what I could do with 60 grand? You know what you could do with 60 grand? This was good enough for $60,000. Okay? Now, ARPA is the American Rescue Plan Act. Okay? That provides grant funding to the city of Bremerton to address economic stabilization for households and businesses. The Project Review Committee, the PRC, recommends utilizing some of these funds to support the work that implements the intention of funding. Right? So remember, the PRC, that committee, which I say you could be a part of, says, hey, look at all these people that came through. They want this kind of money. Yeah, we're going to push that on to the mayor and city council and let them, make a decision based on our recommendations, based on those who meet the required applicable application score. And so it looks like 80 out of 100 is good enough to make this list. Now, a question I would have is how many other people actually, one, applied, and two, how many people made it to this round? I think those are two vital questions, right? And the reason why that is so important to ask is this reason here. Let me zoom in a little bit here for you. Okay. PRC, the Project Review Committee, recommendations for funding contingencies if City Council accepts the recommendation to utilize the ARPA expenditures, right? So, if you're in that committee who decides based on the grades to push them to the City Council and the mayor, they have to say, yeah, all right, we'll go for that. But if they don't, or let's just read it, right? This is the funding contingency if the City Council accepts the recommendation to use the ARPA. If the amount of the CDBG funding is less than $450,000, then PW&U, and I didn't see who that was, receives a reduction in the amount of their award equal to, that's Public Works and Utilities. They receive a reduction in the award, the amount of their reward equal to the annual award reduction. The Parks Grant maintains award at 100% of requests. Okay? So it sounds like here, the Public Works and Utilities, they asked for 219. I guess if they ask for more, but they're using ARPA funds, then they would only get that 219, right? So if they ask for 300,000, they'd only get the 219. That's how I'm interpreting that. If the amount of CDBG funding is more than 450,000, then additional funds roll into next year's process. Okay. Also, if that group that you could be a part of recommendation for the contingencies if City Council does not accept the grant awards with ARPA funding, if the award amount of CDBG funding is less than 450,000, then the weatherization award maintained at 100%, and the Hope Incorporated Job Training Program maintains 15% of the annual CDBG award, right? So they've already decided, hey, look, if it's not going to happen like that, these programs are still getting funded. So again, that's kind of my question is, well, are there other people applying or other organizations applying? And if they are, how many are making it to that level of recommendation to City Council and to the mayor, right? Because that sounds great, right? That looks like we getting funded either way. If the amount of CDBG funding is more than $450,000, then the additional funds roll into next year's process. PCR contingencies beyond the scenario outlined above. If anything beyond these contingencies, then the project review committee will reconvene. Okay. So this is what happened in 2022. So again, I want you to be empowered to understand. We're going over earlier, what you need to do to apply for this money, right? And once you do that, then how do they score it? And then what happens from there? All right. So again, we just clicked on the coordinated grant application. The first document we looked at, we clicked here, which was the City of Bremerton policy plan, that 40-something page document. Then we looked at the notice of funding, that PDF. And then we just finished looking at the coordinated grant application, right? And we can see they're for public, CDBG capital, job training, and City of Bremerton 2023 micro enterprises. Also, we noted that you use the same application for everything. You only have to submit it once, which is good for us because we hit at least 2 of the 3. I don't think we'll be looking at any capital stuff, But these 2, that's great, right? And again, it's important to name the project application. You must enter your agency name, G2 or acronym, first, then the project name. So maybe it's G2 Transportation, G2 STEM program for podcasting, right? Media production, whatever. Instructions are here for each one, right? Capital projects, job training, or micro enterprises. And then here is Sarah's information, okay? The City of Bremerton is required to report annually to the Department of Housing. This is that PDF here. And again, it's just opening it up. And before, I'm not going to go through this. I just want to scroll through it really quick, but I just wanted to show you here again. This is a great way for you to go through these documents on your own. We're at the main page here. This first link is this second tab, right? The second link is the second tab, right? This is the first tab. Here's the second tab. Okay. That third link, the application site, that's the third tab. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And we clicked on organizing information. Going back. This fourth link I got down here, I skipped this, right? Here is the fourth link, 1, 2, 3, 4. So by opening it in a new tab, even if I go and I take a lunch, I go sit in another meeting, I take a break, because Lord knows every 40 minutes you should stand up. So I'm really failing right now with that. But this is how you can easily stay organized when you're covering a bunch of new information and terminology that seems so overwhelming that you haven't accessed before, right? I can come back to this tomorrow. It's one of the reasons why I always have so many windows open and people get on me for that. But I need to have some type of organizational process for me so that I can follow where I was and come back to where I was. You could come and sit in my chair right now and you'd be able to take over and just speak to everything that we've been going over for the last 2 hours quite easily because it's nice and organized. So whatever works for you, I just encourage you to stay organized in that way because it'll make it a lot easier when it's time for you to go over this. And that's another reason why I open this up and I do it this way so that, you're listening, you're watching me now. So maybe you have another computer or another screen where you can open it up and look, but maybe you'll be doing this later, right? And so by opening these windows and looking through the requirements, I want it to look familiar to you as you're looking through it later, tonight, tomorrow, next week, 2 months from now. Right? It's like, oh, okay, I remember that. That looks familiar to me. Okay. Let's go down here to the job training. This is just a 3-page document here, the City of Bremerton job training funding application. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe this is what Dr. Lillian is applying for through here. No. Coffee Oasis, right? I believe that's what they're looking for. But you know what? That could be the coding dojo might fall under job training also. Okay. So, again, this application is for job training projects, which take place in the city of Bremerton. Capital projects and micro enterprise projects have a separate funding application. Here's just the job training one, right? Enter the agency name and the project name. So, gather together, grow together. The conduit, da 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 da. That's what it was. Program narrative. Please provide a detailed description of your program. Include the following information: specific activities it will provide, linkage to program goals, what the requested grant funds will pay for. So, you guys haven't seen it yet. You'll see it later. But shout out to Shaylin Houston, who works at Goodwill, that they have a youth STEM program. So I had all of their STEM program students here in this studio, and they all got to learn how to use all of this equipment. They all produced their own podcasts, and they will be in a live environment at a future date to actually execute a live podcast, right? And so that is one of the things. This is like one of the fastest growing sectors of entrepreneurship, right? Doesn't take a whole lot, and you can monetize very easily in several different ways. And so when you're thinking about either a main career, a side hustle, whatever the case may be, there's a lot of technicality that goes into running cameras, running audio, troubleshooting, how to do these things, bringing guests on, how do these things work, making thumbnails. There's a whole lot to it, right? That goes in there. Now, while it's super easy and someone can just pick up a phone and go live and yada yada yada, to build it into something takes a lot more work and time. So this is the narrative. So what is this program? What are they going to be doing? And what are your program goals? So how does teaching someone how to use, software and hardware fit with your programmatic goals, right? So, clearly, if you're going to be an editor or a producer of a show, right, you have to know, one, how to connect all this stuff, right? I can give you all the most expensive, greatest and latest, audio and visual equipment known to man. If you can't connect it, you can't use it, it's useless. It's a paperweight, right? If you can't troubleshoot it when it goes down, oh, my camera went black. What do I do? How do you fix that? Oh, I can't hear the audio. What's going on? What do you do? This person's too loud. All right. So how does that work? How do they, set up channels? How do they network? How do they advertise? How do they market? How do you create revenue? Right? These could all be program goals, right? I'm giving you the game right now, by the way. And what is the requested grant funds? What will they pay for? So what do we need to pay for? Do we need any more equipment in order to do it, right? Do I have, like, let's say for coding, each kid might have their own Chromebook that they're working on, right? Well, I don't have a Blackmagic and a Rodecaster Pro 2 for each student, right? So, do you need more equipment? Do you need to have more equipment? Do you need to have, what kind of materials do you need? Are they going to be digital? Are they going to be paper? Is it going to be a notebook? One good way is to, put all your program on a thumb drive, right? And it's like, all right, pop that in the computer. Today, we're going to be on lesson 1-2, and this is the objectives of the lesson. This is what we're going to go over. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to do 1, 2, 3, or A through Z, right? We're going to check for understanding. And if you're feeling good, then you're great. If not, we're going to reinforce your learning, and then we'll go on from there, right? Program history. In the form fields before, describe a brief history or background of the program to be funded. If this is an existing program, please describe how it has evolved over time. If it's new, explain how it came about. In both cases, you must explain how the program fits the overall mission of the organization, right? So how does the conduit serve gather together, grow together, right? Self-sufficiency for all residents in Kitsap County, right? Well, this is empowering people to find other avenues to generate revenue, or to find other avenues to help provide information to their own communities, right? Maybe it's not it can be a nonprofit, but it's still a way to monetize it, right? Because this is a job training program. By doing this, I'm going to go and work for, public access television. I'm going to go and work for Como or King 5. I'm going to go work for a larger podcast. I'm going to create the thumbnails, right? I'm going to do the SEO marketing, right? There's so many different aspects that you can talk about here, right? And if this was born out of something else, you can talk about that too, right? I've been into computer literacy for a long time that has kind of morphed into these different things, right? In teaching, basic computer skills and Microsoft Office Suite, Excel, and, Word, and being able to function at the college when I taught at the college. And now you're using those knowledge, skills, and abilities to go into a new arena, right? So how can you make those connections, if there are connections, right? And again, it's got to be clear and coherent. It might sound good to you, but it might not sound good to the person that's reviewing it, right? So that's important. Program staff, please list all the staff involved in this program, including their qualifications, experience, and roles in the program. So again, if I was using the podcast, I would say clearly I have more than a year of experience podcasting, right? I actually contract with the county. The county pays me to produce content for them, right? So again, produce commodity, proven financials, right? So you got that. You guys have seen Sabrina. She knows how to set everything up. She knows how to run the podcast, which is awesome. You guys have met Keyshawn. Keyshawn is newer, but you see that Keyshawn is with me and setting things up and talking with folks and helping the guest know what they need to do. This is where you need to stand. This is how you need to speak. This is where you're going to speak. This is what you're going to do, right? All of these positions are there. You got the Rev, who creates our website and runs technical things. And then also he can do many of the same things that the other ones can do, right? And that's why you see us do events at the church. And so being able to understand how the hardware works, how the software works, how to troubleshoot, all those things are in there. You're going to speak to all those things. And these are just things that are just coming off the top of my head, just as an example, right? Challenges. And then that would be other volunteers that help too, right? So when we do big things on location, you'll see I'll have a staff of 7 or 8, carrying cameras and all of our audio visual equipment and tables and, all these things, right? You're outside and you need to run extension cords 100 feet and, you've got all these things going on. So there's a lot that goes on. So it's not just, folks just kind of lifting stuff up and putting it down. They have to have a basic understanding of what's happening too, and being able to understand that. Like what happens when you're recording on a device and it gets full and you need to dump that that video, download it somewhere so you can put that device back in action, right? Understanding how those things work. A lot to that. So what are the challenges? Please describe the challenges which face the program. A lot of times there's funding, right? Which is usually the big one. Please explain any challenges you might have, including serving a difficult population, right? So a lot of times the population that they're targeted, transportation is an issue. So, could we provide transportation? Folks are low income. You're expecting them to be with you for 2 to 4 hours. So are you going to feed them? Because they may not afford to bring a lunch with them, right? Maybe there are some gaps in learning because they don't have access to a lot of digital media, software and hardware, right? So they don't have that experience. So you're not going to be able to go as fast. It's not going to be as intuitive to the population that you're serving. right? And you think about little kids now, they grew up. My daughter grew up with a tablet in her hand. So she's smart. Layla could use Microsoft Word at 5 years old, right? But there are a lot of adults that don't know how to use Microsoft Word, right? They haven't had to. There are a lot of 20 and 30-year-olds that have just played video games and used their smartphone, but they haven't had a real need to use some of these new things, right? And so that means that the learning curve is going to be a lot steeper. So these are the challenges that you would want to speak to, right? Lack of stable funding, right, is one. Parents who, maybe, the kids are part of raising their younger siblings. So absenteeism is really high, right? They want to participate, but hey, mom or dad's got to work late tonight, so I got to be home and watch my little sister and brother, right? Maybe I have to also work and contribute to the household, so they can't be there all the time. So that's a challenge, right? That could be a challenge of the program. So now you're trying to offer a program at a time when those kids can actually participate, and that's who you're trying to target, because they always get left out because these programs are during the day or whatever the case may be, or during hours that they just can't participate in. Well, mom or dad, there's one vehicle and they need the vehicle to get to work, and they've got no way to get there, right? And the bus stops running at 8:30, but the program ends at 8:30, and they'd have to leave early all the time. Or the bus, they're not going to be able to transfer and get there. The program's on a Sunday. There's no bus service, right? These would be the challenges that you would want to speak to, all right? Outcomes that are difficult to measure and how you plan to address those challenges, right? So in a lot of programs, it may be difficult to say, hey, this person didn't know any of these things before. Now they can do A through B, right? There is a HOPE survey, which is a really big deal here in the county. And that's designed to measure how somebody feels when they first come to you versus how do they feel, as somewhere in the process now that they have interacted with you in your program, right? Because it can be really hard to measure. I've learned some things, I've gained some things, but they're not going to retain everything, right? They're not going to, it could be, when they say it could be difficult to measure, right? Let's say you're a carpenter. Okay, so you start off, I teach you how to build a shed. And after this, you should be able to build a shed. Well, okay, the most advanced folks might be able to do that at the end. But many people may have just really gotten an introduction just to the basics of hammers and nails and wood and cutting. And, that's a huge leap, right? So for one person, building a house or building a cabin or a shed, that's their pinnacle. For another person, being able to really have a basic understanding of these things is really significant. And how is that significant, right? So those things can be hard to measure. How many people are you reaching in a particular demographic? That might be easier. Performance measurements worksheet. Please download the COB, Economic Development Performance Measurement Worksheet. This form has instructions for you to guide you, right? So that's great. They already have something to help you with the performance. Again, ask Sarah about this if you're unclear. Ask Coffee O, ask KCR. So in the BEST program, they go through the program, right? I believe they have to create a business plan. And at the end, they're going to have a product, they're going to have a budget, they're going to do all these things. So how are they measuring that? Are they looking and saying, hey, they have a business plan and it hits all these elements, A through H. They should be able to witness in their business plan. They should have a budget that talks about their expenses, their potential revenue for the first year, their cost, their unit per cost, because they're selling food, right? Can you show that? And then you can rate, again, completeness. Okay, well, they had, how much they thought they were going to make. They had, the cost of the food, but they missed, they got to pay for a kitchen, right? Like we pay for a kitchen right now for our summer food program. They missed that they were going to have to pay some folks to help them prepare. They missed, they're going to have to estimate, because they're doing food delivery, how much the gas and the maintenance is, right? They missed some of those things. So it wouldn't be 100 out of 100. Maybe they got an 80 out of 100. So you got to have your ways that you're gonna measure that. As an example, your objectives and your outcomes. How do you document client objectives and outcomes in performance measurement sheet? One of the standard ways are quizzes and tests and things like that. Folks can demonstrate physically. Hey, we're going to make donuts, right? Did you make a powdered donut or did you make a cookie? That might be the outcome, right? Can you do a podcast? And in that podcast, are you able to connect all the equipment? Take it all out of the bag, set it all up correctly, make sure that it all works, set up your cameras, set up your microphones, right? Can you create the show? Can you create the thumbnails? Can you do the marketing and advertising up front? That the show is going to take place. If that's that part's important, you want to capture that. Can you host the show? Hi, I'm on camera and this is the conduit. Thank you for today. Can you use all of the information or use all of the technology correctly? Can you bring guests on? Can you add different elements in, play videos? Can you troubleshoot if there are some issues? Can you respond to people in the chat? Can you facilitate that? So all those things you may be wanting to capture as an outcome and an objective, right? So it may be different. It may not be all those things. That's huge, right? That would be a lot for me to try to track. I'm going to take someone who's cold, that's never done it, and track all of that stuff. That's a lot, right? That takes a while to do that. Best practices. Explain how your program uses best practices to strengthen the program and or benefits clients. Describe the specific practices and how each one supports the client objectives. Here, don't get bogged down in best practices. Like, I don't know of a program that, teaches people how to podcast aside from, YouTube videos or, little programs that you could pay for online, right? I don't know of any physical classes that you can go to and get hands-on experience, right? Like if you can't afford to buy this stuff, then you're not going to have anything to play with, in that environment. So I don't know of any physical places that you can go, right? But some of the best practices you can use, or high impact practices, I like that. To me, there's no such thing as best. High impact, yes. Best is always changing, right? Because if you ever reach the best, that means you have nowhere to grow. Anyway, word semantics, I digress. But high impact practices, best practices for sake of this, these are transferable skills, right? So what pedagogy do I use in teaching college students? That pedagogy are things that I would use in whatever program that I execute now, right? And that's just pedagogy is, my theory of teaching, right? How do you check for understanding? How do you set objectives for students? How are you breaking down information? Are you making it where there's an auditory opportunity for those that learn by hearing? Do you have a visual opportunity like I'm showing you here on the screen for those that are visual learners? Do you have a kinesthetic experience for those that learn best by actually touching, right? When I started this off, I had to watch videos to teach myself how to do podcasts. Well, until I got more equipment, I had to teach myself that too, right? And a lot of it is repetition, right? So that's part of it too. That could be part of your pedagogy is, look, welders have to weld so many hours to receive a certificate. You may need to produce so many shows to be, proficient. You may need to set up a podcast so many times from start to finish with 2 errors or no errors in order to be proficient. For you to go and go work for another agency or volunteer for another agency and say, hey, I'm going to be this person for you. Here's the equipment that you have. I can go ahead and set all your equipment up. I can, troubleshoot it. I can produce the show from you from behind the scenes, or I can even host the show, right? And so as you see right now, this is a one-person show. So I've got to do it all. I got to change the cameras. I got to change the mics. I got to put the stuff on the screen. I got to troubleshoot if there's an issue. I got to talk to people in the chat. I got to pull the information up. So there's a whole lot to unpack there. And it just seems so simple. You're just hitting live on Facebook and saying, hey, what's up? What's good? Right? So much to that. But folks are looking for something technical, right? How do you measure it? What are your outcomes? What are your objectives? What are the best practices? Who are we serving? Who am I serving in this community, right? And how did I determine that there was an unmet need? Well, first off, I can say, hey, the folks that I serve, the people that are in my circle, don't make enough money to pay their bills, to pay their rent, to pay their food, to save up for a house. That's not even a thought. They're just in survival mode. So the community need is folks need access to experiences and education that they can take those new knowledge, skills, and abilities and either use them in the format that I'm teaching it in or use those skills in other sectors where they can monetize it or serve their communities in how they want to do it. Benefits to unduplicated person. Estimate the number of unduplicated persons that will benefit from this program according to the area median income categories listed below. Okay. And again, this was one that I would ask, right? So unduplicated means, let's say you're offering a program and somehow that person is getting that benefit twice, right? You could think of utility assistance and rental assistance, right? They're getting two different services, but they're coming into the same place. So sometimes you get to count them as two people because they're using two different programs, but it is still one person using two programs, right? So they want the unduplicated number of people. Maybe an example would be, hey, I'm gonna do a podcast for an organization. They want to do their own show, and they have 5 people that are going to do this show, right? So I'm going to teach those 5 people how to do a show, and then they're going to all do a podcast together. Well, I would only be able to count those 5 people as unduplicated. I wouldn't be able to count that Tom is podcasting to the other 4. Jane is podcasting to the other 4, including Tom. Sarah is podcasting to Tom and Jane. You see what I'm saying? Then you're like, oh, well, there's 25 people duplicated, right? Because they've all learned and they're all using that new learned skill on all those people, right? But that's duplicated. And sometimes things are counted that way and it looks good. And sometimes it actually is real, like with utility and rental assistance. That's real, right? Those are 2 different services and they should be counted, but it could actually still be the same person. What's the presumed benefit? Please select the beneficiaries that could be classified as under the presumed benefit category. So who do you think is going to benefit from this program? Obviously the person that is getting the training, if their intention is to, start a business with it or monetize it, right? Maybe it's just for them. Maybe it's for their family. Maybe they're young adults and they're already parents. Maybe it's for their school. Maybe it's for their organization. And then the intake form. Please upload your intake form. This form is mandatory for all public service projects. And the intake criteria. Okay. Program design. Please describe how you tailored your program. Well, let me read this. Your intake and eligibility criteria. Please describe the following: your target population for the program, eligibility requirements for the entry into the program, and the requirements for the program participation. Okay, so what's your target? What do they have to do to get in there? I need to be this tall to ride this ride. And then what are the requirements for the participation? Okay, what's your program design? Describe how you tailored your program to design to specifically respond to your community need, right? So for us, we know that transportation is an issue for the folks that we serve in this community. So is there a transportation element to help our folks actually be able to participate in the event? Or are we going to tell the folks, well, you know what, you got a friend, a family member should be able to do it, you know? Maybe you can hop on the bus. It might take you 2 hours to get here, but if you want it bad enough, you'll do it, right? That may be something that we do to help our folks that we're trying to, our target population, actually participate in it. Maybe they can get there, but you know what? Really hard to think when you're hungry. And it's a 4-hour program, and you know they're going to be hungry. So maybe you need to feed them, right? Because I want you to have every opportunity for information retention. And if you're not hungry, if your stomach isn't growling, then your focus is there, right? Or at least that's one big thing that won't take away from your focus. If there's a target population, please describe how you're interested to ensure that you're not overfilling the existing service gap. Okay. Now, what's interesting about this is I see this one all the time, right? And I get this in college. Duplication of effort. Well, someone's already feeding the homeless downtown, so why do you need to feed them? Well, my answer to that question is because when you want to go in the refrigerator and you want a snack, even though you just ate lunch an hour ago and for some reason you're hungry, they're probably hungry too. That's what food insecurity, right? I'm hungry and I can't do anything about it. You can, right? I've got to make sure I take everything in the kitchen sink when I leave out for the day because I'm on public transportation. So if I get all the way across town and I go to a doctor's appointment, I have class after that, or I have to go to work. I can't get on a bus, go all the way back home, get my work clothes, get my school books, and then go get back on a bus and then go to school or go to work. So by having transportation, I can actually get to the doctor's appointment, come back home because, well, that's a 3-hour gap in between because I've had to travel back from the doctor's appointment all the way home, right? Get my stuff and then get back on the bus. Otherwise, I have to take everything and leave from the doctor's appointment, get to class or to work an hour and a half early and just wait there. Now, yes, I could try to fill my time doing something else, right? But man, that's so much wasted time, right? Hard to read and concentrate when I'm on a bus bumping around and people are talking and stuff is going on. Hard to find a place to sit down and pull out everything that I've packed for the entire day. Not to mention I have some health issues, so physically it's killing me, but we got to do what we got to do. Now, if I could go home, I can make myself something to eat. I can rest. I can get my mind ready. I can do a load of laundry maybe. I can take care of some other things, and then I can get to my next place. Money is so valuable, but time is even more valuable than money because with time, you can make money. But you got to make that argument coherent. People don't always see it that way, right? So it's up to you. All right. Describe your tailored program. How does your agency ensure that you're not overfilling the existing gap? Again, sometimes folks are already doing this, right? So, I would love to ask Dr. Lillian, and I'm assuming that she's got a good answer for this. They're working with Catalyst and Kitsap Strong and their organization, right? And so kids from Catalyst, they're in a charter school. That's great. So they're getting some experience there. Now I'm assuming, well, there's no coding at Catalyst. So, it's not a duplication because no one is given, they don't have an opportunity for coding anywhere else, right? So if I did something on teaching kids on how to podcast or whatever the case may be, they're not already doing that in their school or somewhere else. And again, I would check with Sarah to make sure that what I'm saying is correct, right? Community impact. Please discuss how this program will create positive changes in the lives of individuals, families, and community. Man, self-confidence, increasing their knowledge, increasing their capacity for working with and understanding different hardware. Many of these things can be intuitive, but with different bells and whistles on them, it can be really intimidating. To learn how to use different software. When I taught Microsoft Word, it's like, okay, well, Microsoft Word is very similar to Google Docs. They all have a ribbon across the top, and the ribbon is full of tabs. And when you click on a different tab, it's going to pull up what you can do. Whether you're going to print or open up a new file or change it from landscape to portrait or work with your columns, they're both going to be the same. And once you understand that, it looks different, but there's a lot of similarities there. And so your anxiety can decrease because now you're like, oh, yeah, it's green instead of blue. But, I can see the ribbon across the top, right? I can see the ribbon across the top. I can see if I click on these tabs, it's going to go to a different thing. And the tab is going to show me something different based on what I click. I got it. I'm good, right? Now, where was I? So, families and community. Well, this is going to be a side hustle. They want to make it their main source of income and revenue. They're going to take it back to their community. And now the things that I'm doing here, they want to do for their own community so they don't miss out on information. So they get up-to-date resources on eviction assistance, on vaccination, on emergencies, on opportunities, right? I want to do that for my community. So that's how it benefits them, right? That's the community impact. Be as specific as you can and illustrate with examples and case studies to demonstrate your community impact, right? Like I said, I'm giving you the game right now. Please don't take mine. This is what I'm trying to do, y'all. Priorities. Please describe how your program meets the economic development priority of 2021-25 consolidated plan, increase economic opportunities for low-income individuals. So now what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to look at this and you're going to use this language, right? Teaching people how to podcast is going to do this based on what y'all said in here. That's all you're doing. You're not reinventing the wheel. You're just saying how the peanut butter and jelly comes together for a delicious sandwich. What partnerships? How the services your program provides integrate with other community services? Describe the partnerships in other agencies. Well, Dr. Lillian came on last Wednesday. She said, hey, we're working with Catalyst. We're working with KidSap Strong and Graduate Strong and KCR, not to leave them out, right? So those are your partnerships. So what are your partnerships? Who are you going to work with? I'm going to do a program on this, and I'm going to work with New Horizon Ministries because they have a location that's bigger than my home studio, right? I can do it in here, but it's much nicer because there's a computer lab there, right? I'm going to work with the Coulier and maybe Deborah because they have access to kids. Maybe I work with the Black Student Union and Living Life Leadership. They have all this cultural information and expertise that not only takes learning something basic like hardware, software, and putting it together, but it also talks about the cultural impact and the impact that they can make on themselves as an individual, their families, and their community at large. How they can empower themselves and their family. How they can teach others in their family. How they can teach their community. How they can inform their community. And why that's important. What's your outreach plan? Please describe your outreach plan and how it will ensure the eligibility persons will have, or the eligible persons will have access to your program. You should address how you will reach persons with disabilities, limited English-speaking persons, and minority population. Okay. Well, again, the great thing is it's going to be at New Horizon Ministries. They have an elevator. So folks that have limitations and need physical assistance will be able to get into the building and into the classroom, into the space. They can't do that here. There's a lot of stairs and they're steep, right? I can work with Mesa Redonda and Martita May, shout out. I can work with Kayak, shout out, and get the information to them. I can ask, do you have any Spanish-speaking volunteers, bilingual folks that could come and help us out? And G2 already exists, so we already serve minority populations. Well, actually, we serve all of these populations, but just saying. What's your national objective? If your program is funded, it must meet a national objective. So I would need to go and look at the drop-down list. And I'm sure that it would fit under quite a few. For existing public service, if your project is quantifiable, increase in the level of service, please describe it. I don't know if this is applicable. I'm not a public service, okay? Public information, what's your budget? Or project financial information, what's your budget? Please down your COB, Economic Development Plan budget form, right? So there's a form, you're gonna fill it out, and you're gonna send it up. And we kind of went over that, right? What are your costs? You know, how did you arrive at your cost? Oh, I need another computer. I need more cameras. Each person or team of people needs a camera and a microphone, right? At least, and a camera and a computer at the minimum, right? So maybe we do it in pairs, because if you can teach someone else how to do something, then that reinforces your learning. So we're going to work in teams. Although some people do learn better by themselves, right? So you have opportunities for both individual work, group work. You know, do you need documents, things printed out? Do you need thumb drives, transportation, food? You know, whatever it needs for this program, that's what you're going to do. Do you have to pay staff? Okay, think about all those things. Those are your cost estimates. Job descriptions. If you're requesting funds for personnel costs, please indicate here, right? Well, maybe there's you know, someone you need to pay. Maybe you need to pay the driver to pick the kids up and get them to the location. So you got to pay for that, right? So what's the job description for that? You know, if that's a new duty on the side. So let's say we're doing that. That's not something that G2 does. So I can't just pull from G2 and say, hey, I need a driver and a vehicle to take out of our fleet to do this program. No, we actually need funding for that, right? So then I would put that down on the job description. Yeah, I know we feed folks that are food insecure, and we do food for the summer food program, we do a neighborhood barbecue, but this is something separate and different. So we actually have a cost for food and someone to prepare that food for the people that are in this program when this is the program. And I'm saying kids, this can be adults too, right? We cannot pay our rent. We cannot pay our mortgages. We cannot pay for food. We cannot pay for fuel, right? I need a side hustle. I can't drive, right? There's a lot of folks that have criminal records that can't work in a lot of different sectors that would actually give them the money they need to pay their rent, to be self-sufficient. So I need to be able to do something like this where that doesn't matter. See, these are all the things that you can articulate in the programs that you're trying to do. All right. So you want to get all that, your job descriptions there. Your sources of funding. If you're using other sources of funding for your project, please describe here. Download the form. 2023 sources of financing and fill and upload. You should also have a letter of commitment from the funder if you're receiving funds. All right, so let's say, hey, we're going to start on this new endeavor, and G2 is going to commit $1,000 to this program in 2023. Right? Then we're going to want to put that down. So we have that. Funding commitments. Do you have other funding commitments, including conditional commitments for your program? Right? These folks will support the program if I have at least 10 people from this area of marginalized people, and they'll kick in $2,000, right? But it's contingent upon this, right? Upload funding commitment document here. Sustainability. Please describe how your agency's plan for funding sustainability for the program. Describe a short-term and long-term ramifications of not receiving full funding. Right? This one is a tricky one, and I actually hate this one, and a lot of people do. Right? It's like, well, I mean, if I could just do this without asking you for money, wouldn't I already be doing it? It's a stupid question. Right? So, but they're saying, hey, look, you're asking for 100,000. We might not give you anything, or we might give you 50,000. If we give you 50, are you going to be able to do the program? Is the program going to be here next year if you come back and we're not able to fund you? So how's that going to go? Is this a 1 year, a one-time thing? So you have to talk about that, right? Do you have other funding sources? Are you going to be seeking other funding sources? Are you going to charge the people that are going to be in the program, like a summer camp or, a workshop? They have to pay a fee. Are you going to fundraise? So maybe you'll do that. Like, hey, we're going to do a fundraising event based on this. We're going to reach out and ask for sponsors, right? We didn't do that yet, but that's what we're going to do for next year, right? And then they're going to grade that, right, based on what you put down. And that is the short-term and long-term ramifications, right? So if you don't receive full-time funding or full funding, maybe it's like, hey, we can get along next year because, well, cameras and microphones are relatively cheap, and unless they break, they're going to be good, right? And they're not going on location, so folks are just going to be connecting them and putting them down. I mean, right now, I think I probably have like 12 microphones. So that's okay. I'm the teacher, so I don't have to pay myself. I can forego payment if that's what needed to happen, for the program to continue into the next year. Or it could be, hey, look, if we don't have this funding, we're not going to be able to pay for the teacher or the instructor. We're not going to be able to pay for the transportation to get folks there. And so based on how this works, right, this money this year will help us to execute the program, get it off the ground. Maybe it'll help us into next year because we won't have those same expenses from year one because we had to build from the ground up, right? And we won't need as much. Startup costs tend to be really high. I need 200,000 to get this off the ground. But after that, I can do this off of 50 grand. I need 100,000 to get this off the ground. But after this, I can do it at 40, 50,000 a year. So even if you don't give me that 50,000, we still have 50,000 from other places, and or it's already designed to be absorbed into the parent organization, right? So lots of different ways to justify that, I would say. And then again, ask questions. Request rationale. Please describe the rationale behind the amount of funds you've requested. What percentage of funding for this program to come from the Bremerton grant funds, right? So if you're asking for $40,000 from Bremerton and your program is 40,000, then it's 100%, right? If you're asking for 30,000, but your program is 40,000, then you're asking for 75%, right? And I'd probably say the lower the percentage, probably the more opportunity you have to receive the money. I don't think KCR's weatherization program is just I think it was 50,000 from this pot of money, right? That's weatherization is pretty costly. So they may say, hey, it's $50,000, and that's 5% of the money that we have coming in. So that's the impact. And that's it. 3 pages here. And this is for the CDBG job training funds through the city of Bremerton. Okay. So I wanted to go through that so you can see it. If that's your plan there for the micro businesses. Whoops. I did it. Okay. Let me zoom in here. This one's only 2 pages. It's a little bit smaller. As you can see, it looks exactly the same, right? It's just a few different things here. I'm going to blow through this really quick. Again, you can go through this slow. Agency name, project name, program narrative, your history, your staff. Now, this one's new. Micro enterprise business assisted. Please estimate the number of micro enterprise businesses to be assisted. A micro enterprise business is defined as a commercial enterprise with 5 or fewer employees, one of whom owns the enterprise. They all must be low or moderate income. Additionally, please include the number of FTE jobs created or FTE jobs retained, right? Challenges, performance measurement, objectives and outcomes, best practices, all the same, right? Community need, benefit to unduplicated persons, your intake form, your program design, your community impact, your priorities, your partnership, your outreach plan, your national objective. Again, just look at the drop down and see which one it hits. Your program budget, your cost estimates, your job description, your source of funding, your funding commitment, upload that, sustainability, and your request rationale. This one's only 2 pages, right? So again, you can just go back to the time marker for the other one that I covered and go through that slowly if you're looking for a narrative. And again, lastly, ask those questions of Sarah Lineman, City of Bremerton Block Grant Program. Okay. Put her stuff in there again. All right. So going back to the top here, we are at the City of Bremerton. And this is their federal grants, community block grant information. In summary, what we did here, we did not worry about the sides, except for we did sign up to receive notifications. So we are ready next year. All right. We went down the front here. Let's see what that is. And we clicked on each one of these and we went over each one in detail. And it just talked about what, how the funds are, what is the process, what's the deadline, okay, where to get the application site, whether or not you're going for capital funds, job training, or a micro enterprise. You saw your deadline, end of the month here. We see the contact person for the City of Bremerton Block Grant Program is Sarah Lineman. We see her email is sarah.lineman@ci.bremerton.wa.us. This is further information that we didn't go into, but always good to read, right, on the different programs. Here's more information. And this is previous year funding, okay? The funding calendar, the notice of fundings available. So you could look back at 2022, 2021, 2020, right? 2020, there's a whole bunch of funding, right? 2021, a lot less than half, and then lost another one in 2022. Oh, what is this? Funding recommendation. Oh no, they added funding recommendation. This wasn't on this one. Okay, I'm actually interested in that. Let me open that. This might be what we looked at earlier. Okay, so here we see the YWCA asked for $145,000 for emergency shelter improvements, and they got it. The City of Bremerton Parks Department needed $75,000. They asked for it. They got it. The City of Bremerton Public Works, looks like they didn't get all of their money. And I don't know why this is so tiny. I'm going to really enlarge that. Okay, it looks like they asked for $98,000 and they got $64,000. KCR asked for weatherization and minor home repair. They asked for 50 and they got it. KCR asked for their best program, 105,000 requested, not funded due to entitlement, amount less than 445,000. It looks like they did not get it that year. Coffee Oasis asked for their Hope job training program. They asked for 80,000. Looks like they got 60,000. Okay, so that was last year. All right. And as you can see, if allocation from HUD is increased up to 475 or more, Public Works will receive an award of 25,000. All right. And best will be capped at 50,000. Okay. So one thing that I would like to ask Sarah is this of benefit if more people are applying for funds? Because when they go and request for the next year, they're like, hey, the Conduit did a podcast and like 6 more businesses came on and applied. We need 1.5 million instead of 450,000. You know, is that a benefit, right? Because it actually shows the actual need here in our community. So if people aren't applying for these things, it's like, well, there's no need. It's just Coffee Oasis and KCR and Public Works and the Parks Department. And, you know, other than that, I mean, the YWCA needed a one-time emergency shelter improvement, you know. No one else is, you know, trying to get these funds. So if they don't know, they're just going to put in what's there. So I encourage you to please work with your groups, work with those that have done it before, reach out to Sarah and others and see what you can do. All right? All right. So what I'll do is, I've been going for 3 hours and 13 minutes. I am going to get up now. I do appreciate y'all. I hope that this is informative. Please send this information to folks. The deadline is in 12 days. I know it's not a lot. But if you're already up and going and you already have a program, you can go ahead and you can get some money. That would be great. Okay. If not, you can start looking into this and start planning for next year or the year after. Do know I am here. So if you're looking for someone to partner with, you know, transportation, food, other expertise, we are here for you. If we can make it work, we love to be your partner. And with that, I will say I hope that you have a productive Monday and a productive rest of your week. I am Marwan Cameron. This is The Conduit, everyone. Don't forget, again, it's 2:30. There's still 1 hour left to get lunch at KCR and also at New Horizon Ministries. Again, summer food program will be going all summer long, Monday through Friday, 12:30 to 3:30 p.m. at 4040 Wheaton Way, Suite 203, and Kitsap Community Resources at 1201 Park Avenue in Bremerton. All right, everyone. We'll see you next time.